is this really the end of late 90s week?
This is the end. What late 90s alt-rock week turned into just 1998 alt-rock week. So we will return.
To a 99 or a 97?
A 99 or a 97.
It's a Bennington show. I'm Ron Bennington. There's Gail Bennington.
Yo.
And I'm Ron Bennington. And man, today is a very exciting day. All of us are having this album release party for Anthony DeVito.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Thanks, guys.
Yes, it's really, the liquor's flowing, the food is here.
God. No, I can't have any more cake, Ron.
Congratulations to you, my friend.
Thanks, man. That really means a lot.
This is the
Awesome.
debut album, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Dream Occupation, available now on iTunes. And also, of course, the Rad Dude cast is available on iTunes. And I'm not used to seeing you without that weird thing that you'll throw around your head when you're on MSG. That
the headpiece?
Yeah. The headpiece says, are you talking to anybody on there? Or
No, there's nothing
That's just
there.
made up.
Yeah, that's a wire that goes into my pocket, and that's it.
And then you have a clipboard that you don't write on.
Yeah, it was real like lo-fi. How do I look like a writer? And it was
So
like,
great.
Yeah, just do the clipboard, do the headset. I wanted to be in a hooded sweatshirt for every episode too, but yeah, that was it.
So that show, does it just air in New York, or can you see it around the country? How does that work out?
I think you could probably see it in like the tri-state area.
Yeah.
I guess wherever anyone gets MSG, and then I think they put all the episodes on YouTube in their entirety. So there's that. But yeah, for the most part, it's just like a New York audience.
But, you know, New Yorkers live everywhere now. So when you go to
Sure.
Florida, everybody knows the New York references.
Right.
Same when you're in the Southwest.
Right.
It's everywhere. So people are like, how the Yanks doing? Like, you live somewhere else.
Yeah, you live in Toledo.
It's really terrible for the Florida teams, the baseball teams, because they only
Right.
sell out when they're playing the Mets or the Yankees.
Right.
No one else.
Yeah, because everyone from New York goes to Florida to
Yeah.
retire,
Yeah.
and then they're not going to just become, Jacksonville Jaguar fans.
It doesn't happen
That's
that
never
way.
going to happen. Yeah.
And they shouldn't. No one should.
Yeah.
No one should do that.
But it's really funny because when I lived in Tampa, Green Bay would show up, and those people would
Right.
fly there for the game.
Right.
Of course, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, they never had a home field advantage at their home field.
Right.
You a football fan? Or
Yeah,
you
I
do-
feel like it's waning, but yeah.
You do. You guys do a lot of basketball, but you feel like you're getting a little sick of football.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's every day with just something new in football,
Right.
unrelated to football, that's like just depressing.
Right. It is
like
depressing.
it starts with CTE, and then you have like whatever's going on with Kaepernick, and then you have like Ezekiel Elliott with domestic violence. So
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know how much more until they like come to my house and put me in a headlock. I don't know how much more until I'm like, I'm done with football.
I remember a couple years ago telling somebody that it was a sad. It's a sad sport. It really is. Like, that these guys are hurting themselves, even though they are making the pick to do this. And that person called me faggot, and then that word no longer can be used. And it turns out it is like more people, because we were at a point where I was like, football is forever, and I do think it will be the number one sport probably for the rest of your lifetime.
Yeah.
But it will never be that excitement level that it was in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I just think we're starting to learn too much about the
Right.
brain, and then with social media, things that you could do in private and handle things, court cases.
Right.
Like it's just everyone has access to your every move, so to hide those things is kind of impossible now.
Impossible. And those guys used to be like fun crazy. Like, it was
Right.
like, we do a lot of drugs. So
Yeah.
great.
Party.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old Raiders would be like basically Cossacks, and they would
Right.
go from town to town and just take what they wanted. And now that's bad behavior.
last season was the first time I saw an NFL game live,
Right.
and I saw a hit that made me sick.
It's a
I
different.
mean,
Yeah,
it made
yeah.
me
Yeah.
sick. I think it was Sproles, who's
Yeah,
very
he did.
little,
Yeah.
got hit, and I think they were playing the Redskins, and it was
Like a
so
gun goes
graphic.
off. Like a gun goes
Right.
off.
And people were so upset, to see the way he was just like brutalized.
Right.
And it was like, oh man, when you are watching it on a screen, you're like, oh, that looked bad, but nothing like the smash is just horrible.
But
it was
even
really,
when
really sickening.
Yeah, totally.
Even like when I was a little kid and we were playing the Little League version of football, my friend goes to block a punt and gets kicked in the throat and he swallowed his tongue. And we're all sitting there watching them trying to pull his tongue out.
Stop. Oh my God, I don't know why, but that just like made my thighs go on fire.
It stays like that.
I mean, yeah.
And we just,
yeah, right. It doesn't just come back. Yeah.
Here was the funny thing. There was an ambulance there of two guys from the local fire company who only drove up and were sitting on the hill just to watch the kids play. They weren't actually there for us. They came driving down, pulled his tongue out, because the coaches were just standing around going like this, I don't know.
Not good.
We don't have a game plan for a swallowed tongue. We just,
come on, son. Come on, son.
We really just worried about their running back. Not this.
But I remember there was like a kid. He was an Italian kid, and he was a great athlete and everything, baseball, basketball, and his mom wouldn't let him play football.
Right.
And we were like, what are you, psycho? Your family's nuts. Right. And now no one wants their little kids to play football.
Right. You seem like a bad parent.
Yes.
If you let it happen. Yeah, it's weird. I know. My mom was the same way. Italian mother wouldn't let me do that. And it was like every other kid would be like, wow, that's just, your mom, I can't believe it. And now, it's a totally different story.
Who would have thought those old Italian women were right? They weren't right about anything, but that one thing.
Yeah, I guess I always need a jacket.
Now, Chris, you had this story the other day that you said 50% of the people who play pro football broke within 2 years.
80%.
80%.
Either bankrupt or have financially like in bad straits, heading towards bankruptcy. So 80% of players 2 years out.
Wow. I mean, wow.
Yeah, most of the players aren't Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there is, 10% stars in that league, but most of those guys, I mean, if you watch Hard Knocks, you see a lot of those guys. This is my sixth team in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Just hoping to catch on.
Yeah, it's like watching The Wrestler.
Yeah,
it's
really
so
depressing.
sad.
It's a broken down piece of meat.
Yeah. Desperately just trying to make the bucks,
I still thought he had a pretty good life.
So that's pretty cool. Marissa Tomei.
That's not bad.
Life was good. He's playing some decent rooms. I mean, sure, he's not playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I'd be lucky to play a gymnasium in Paramus.
Greg Stone is like, hey, dude, who's booking that? Seriously. Let me know. Don't forget me. Chris, you don't plug? There's a thing.
I apologize. Anthony DeVito's in studio. Anthony's debut album, Dream Occupation, is available now on iTunes, and his podcast, The Rad Dude Cast, is available on iTunes. And go to AnthonyDeVitoComedy.com for all of Anthony's dates, on Twitter at @AnthonyDeVito_.
How is everybody from Rad Dude Cast? What's happening?
Everybody's good. I mean, Greg's great. I think he's coming in to do another show, so he might stop in just to say hi or whatever.
What the hell?
What?
How do we not know that, Chrissy?
I didn't know.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that was just. I saw Greg. That's not on Chris. I was
Get him.
walking.
Get Chris.
I was walking here. I saw Greg at the deli with Andy Fury. I said, "I'm going to Sirius." They said, That was all that is.
I hope he stops in. And Andy Fury, we don't know any of this.
I didn't know that.
Once again, this is not.
I should have known.
I blame you, Chris.
And look, I want to see Chris go down more than anybody else. But this is not Chris's fault.
I'm sorry you had to be here today with fucking Chris's last day.
It's over for
But
me.
there was a time that you used to be on top of everything. Let's just admit that.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I mean, you were the young
That
guy.
was a good time.
Yeah.
That was a good time for all of us.
Best time of my life.
I know.
It really was.
Everybody was feeling good.
Every day was great.
I'll say this, man. I don't know. You look healthier than ever.
It's because I started smoking again. That's probably
Oh,
it.
boy. Okay.
Yeah,
you
but
really think he
I
looks
also.
I really do. Yeah.
I think it's because he has a love in his life.
Well, there is.
That could be it.
Really?
Your eyes are brighter.
Yeah.
There are
Are they?
times that you have the eyes of a dead doll.
Lifeless, black like a doll's eyes.
By the way, I cheated, went back and watched the Philly version of that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's not as good as Titanic, but it's still good. I'm obsessed with those deals.
Yeah.
And he hasn't
The
done it in a
Titan.
while. That guy, he's only done two, and he hasn't done it for a while.
What is this?
He's a guy, he's taken Titanic and he's put the Philly accent into the movie.
Yeah, I already love it.
It's already solid.
and it's called Titanic. Titanic. And then, Vito, we ever find a thing where Chris did it?
Yeah, Chris has it on his computer.
Okay. First play, I want Anthony to be able to see a little bit of this.
He's in Wildwood.
This water is so beautiful. I hope I can spend it someday looking at it with somebody on this boat. Rose.
Oh,
You
by
just
the way,
changed my mind.
I saw an updated version of these two kids. They were the two, Rose and Jack, were in the paper the other day, like on page 6. Rose got pretty big. Go ahead, look it up, Chrissy. Rose got big.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, she's always been a little juicy. Like, she's definitely curvy, but
there
perhaps...
were no curves. It was
Brown
perfect sphere.
was the one.
What are you waiting for, Chris? Come on.
I forgot Rose's real name.
You know that's what Anthony wanted to see. Why'd you have to be like, goo? She's thick. All right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. She got thick.
You know what
Now you
happens?
just got a picture of Dice up.
She looks great.
So wait, are they going out, those two?
No.
No, they're besties, though.
Oh, okay.
She goes
always
out
like-
with 14-year-old models.
Yeah. Very
Israeli
different shape.
models. They're
Yeah.
always like, oh, this is my girlfriend from Israel. You're like, how does that happen? Rose. All right, so we played that the other day, and then Chris, right after it, go and say that you acted like you didn't do it on purpose.
I
But
did.
Gail and I freaked out.
Yeah,
All right,
this,
let's
this,
listen.
this is very straight. I'm pulling it up now.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
takes forever.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on right now.
Why couldn't he play it from his?
I don't know.
You know very well why I couldn't.
Well, why is it? Say it.
Tell me why. Yeah,
Because I had to put it on the T drive.
Okay.
Why didn't you tell us about the T drive, Chris?
It's my fault. It's my fault. It's Chur's Philly accent. It's YouTube user Zeke Janai. It's YouTube user Zeke Janai.
Dude, that's immediately after hearing himself say, after hearing the Titanic version, he says YouTube user.
I assume everybody on YouTube's from Philly. Every single commenter.
I honestly think that Philly is what we need to look out for, not Hispanics. And that is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. They're taking our jobs.
They're taking our jobs.
Yeah.
They rape. I mean, God damn it, do they rape?
They rape. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our girlfriends. It's too much.
They wouldn't deny any of it.
No.
They wouldn't, yeah.
Finally, I like to say there are no bad people except for people from that area. They're
Right.
just bad.
I mean, they're born bad.
Well, that's the first football game I ever went to was an Eagles game. And my dad took me, I had to be 4 or 5. And I remember thinking, this man is taking me to a riot. It was so fucking frightening. And a guy tried to run on the field. A fucking cop tackles him. And my whole section is just chanting, fuck him up.
Oh, my
And
God.
I'm just like, I think we should go.
Yeah, you would take kids to Philly games to scare them straight instead of prison. You just take them there. Yeah.
Well, there was jails there. They would keep jails.
So
and,
I can't believe that, man. Yeah.
Well, there was also a jail at the mall. There was one at the fucking A&P and the Acme. The Acme.
All the Wawas.
Where did they get that extra syllable in the word acme? Set the acme.
We're going down the Acme for a bit. And the Wawa. The fact that the gas station sandwich is beloved. It's a scary.
That's like
situation.
a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They talk about that like it's like fine dining.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, you know.
But there is no place to sit down.
Right.
Right. You are still eating a hoagie in your car.
And there's not a single thing in that store that somebody could say, I'm going to make a healthy choice here. There isn't a single healthy choice.
No.
I've only
No.
been to one. I got double meat. It was fucking amazing.
What's that?
I only been to one Wawa ever. It was fucking great.
You made the
Double
the
meat?
Crawford double meat
Yeah,
without
double
ever
meat,
once trying the regular amount
Yeah,
of meat.
Yeah.
I just thought, I'm gonna need more meat here. I'm hungry.
Chris, we fucking plug on this show.
Okay, all right.
We don't sit and talk about double meats and
wanted
how
to hear
hungry
more.
we get. And you don't know very well why you had to do it. It was on the fucking T drive. Yeah.
fucking teeth. Anthony DeVito's in studio. Anthony's debut album, Dream Occupation, is available now on iTunes, and Anthony's podcast, The Rad Dudecast, is available also on iTunes. Go to AnthonyDeVitoComedy.com for all of Anthony's dates. And Talking Sports and Other Stuff airs Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. East at the MSG Network, and it's on the YouTube and their Facebook page.
And it's a lot of fun because it's like it's seeing your buddies on TV, but then there's some classic New York iconic guy sitting with you all the time.
Yeah, that part's been like just a dream come true. Like as a kid, I mean, John Starks, he walked in the room because he did a test episode before we started taping. So like the time he came, like that was his second time being there, right? So he walks in the room and he's just like, "Hey, what's up, Aunt?" And I was like, You can't just call me Aunt. You expect I'm just like okay with that? What are you, crazy?
Right.
You're a poster in my room.
Yeah. And you want to say to him, Mr. Sparks, I had met you one other time. I hope everything here goes to your liking. But that is that's what happens. That's what happens in the business where like, oh, you're there, then you're accepted. You know what I mean?
Right. It's yeah, I don't ever want that feeling of that to go away, that's like normal. Do you know what I mean?
Who was your basketball guy growing up?
Oh, Larry Johnson, LJ.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I loved him. I love that dude.
He's canceled on us twice.
Oh, well,
yeah.
No, he sucks then.
He's our Matt Damon. Keeps doing it.
My guy when I was younger, and I don't think it's been replaced yet, and he's done the show, Dr. J. And when I had interviewed Dr. J, it's fucking you can't get past that.
Right. Because it's like superhero status for you.
Superhero.
Right. Yeah.
Like he could fly. And now I think he's 70 or something, and he can still dunk a basketball.
Yeah.
He could still beat anybody. Yeah. Like if all three of us played him one-on-one, we would lose.
And not even a shot. Like it'd be embarrassing how bad it would go down.
He'd slap shit back in our face, he'd take the ball, jam it.
My pants would be off. I'd just be confused.
Isn't it weird, like, when you figure that out at a certain age? Like, when you're young, you're like, I'm going to be a pro player.
Totally.
But this is like, I couldn't even, it's big enough if I would just watch the game. That's all right. The game is even too complicated for me to even get on the level of them.
Yeah, your dream shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until you're like, well, I bought a basketball.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Yeah, because for a little while you get, maybe I'll be a sports writer then. Yeah. And you're like, oh no, I'm a terrible writer too. Can't even do that.
How am I going to break into this biz?
Yeah. I'll just get cable. That's what I'll do.
I did. I would do the Dream Week baseball, and you get down there, and all those guys are ex-pros that are coaching, and they start talking on a level that you couldn't even possibly get and understand, let alone that it would have to happen on a consistent basis. And you're just like, I just want to play. You know what I mean? Like, can we get out of teaching us to let us go out and play? It just felt like a little kid again.
Yeah, I remember I played, cause I was raised, my mom and grandma, right? Yeah. So I just played against her growing up. So I would dominate. And then I remember when I started playing against other kids, I thought I was incredible because she was like a 60-year-old hairdresser. And I'm just like killing her every day. And then I would go and play against other kids and I'd be like, I don't want to, say anything, but I'm going to annihilate you, And then I would just get trounced and be like, my mom needs to pick up her game. Right. Because she's just let me out there like this.
There's always that thing where you're like, there's one kid who's just like, okay, so he's next level.
Yeah.
And then when you find out that kid doesn't even, go to a major college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Nothing.
That's what's weird. Like, he's playing at a junior college somewhere.
Yeah, he's a real estate agent now. He scored 60 points on me in high school. I also too, there was kids especially, you'd have kids in 6th grade who just went through puberty faster than everybody else.
Right.
So then everybody else is 5'1", whatever it is. Yeah. And there's one kid, full beard. He's 6'4". He's dominating everybody, but then he doesn't grow another inch, and he never had to get any better. Yeah. So then, that's it for him.
Right.
Well, a lot of kids, when you're born with a small, compact body, you can adjust it. Well, there are other kids gangling,
right, yeah.
What I'm doing. And this kid, and he'll top out at 5'1", 5'2".
Right.
But he has 3-4 great years.
Right. He's going to be the best player in middle school.
Yeah, he's just already in control of his body.
Well, the other boys are just like,
They're like baby deer.
Yeah.
There's nothing weirder than middle school when you have like everybody is just at different stages.
Right.
Like there were kids who were like, that dude is a man. He
Yeah.
has a mustache.
Totally.
And then there was other kids who like could have passed for 8 years old.
Right.
Like totally. And then like that's all in one grade.
Yeah.
Like those dudes are in the same grade.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the thing of the 1 year difference, right? So there's whatever the cutoff happens to be. Somebody is at the end of that. Like I was born on New Year's Eve, right? So I fit in with the kids who were born January 1st that same year. And 1 year is a gigantic amount of growth, you know?
Right.
So I was always behind the fucking 8 ball with that. But I also brought a knife to a game. So, I had the intimidation factor.
Sure.
That some of the other kids didn't. I remember one of my favorite things, we played this, we're playing football, and we're like kids, we're like 11 or 12, and the other team is coming in to play us, and some of them are like driving. We're like, this isn't fucking possible.
This is bullshit.
And then when we were in the huddle, they would go like this. Come on out. Come on out. The whole time we're going like this, and I go like this. I don't know about you, but I'm not going out.
I don't like the looks
Not
of this.
fucking fair. They're much older and tougher.
These guys suck.
Yeah.
Please keep me away from them.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Come on out.
It's
So weird.
I don't want to go out.
I would care not to.
Yeah.
I'd like to stay indoors. Yeah, we'd play. I mean, I grew up North Jersey, Essex County, so we play against other teams. Essex County. We played Barringer. It's a high school in Newark. I mean, we would lose by 50 to 60 points. It wasn't like, I'm not exaggerating. You'd walk in and be like, oh, I guess the scoreboard's broken. Like that, it could be the only I remember we were down like 60, and then they start throwing batteries at us. And it was like, I mean, come on. We're all ready.
This was the thing that I had going for me that other kids didn't have. I did not care whether we won or lost. And
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
when people were hanging their head, I'd be like, any more of these little oranges? I know that they... And he's going like, dude, that's your 5th fucking orange quarter. And I was like, yeah. But I remember even, like, the coach saying to me, I need you to give 100%. And me going, that can't possibly happen. It's not going to come close. And maybe 18% during the game. You're getting 0% practice. I'm going to be fucking around and doing other shit and sometimes going off into the woods. I'll say I have to pee. I'll take a walk down by the creek. I couldn't get caught up in the fact because you play backyard basketball. Lost and won. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
No one ever cried until you put on a uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one ever cried.
Right. You would go and then you go to that person's house and hang out with them.
Right.
You were friends. So the idea of like being mad at like other, I know I couldn't do it either.
Yeah.
And same thing. It was like, I don't know, my mom raised me. There wasn't a competitive bone in my body. She was happy I was out there. That was it.
Making friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying.
Getting to know people.
I remember, there was this kid. So I forget who we were playing, but this guy, he's trying to talk trash. We're down so much. I haven't done a thing. This guy's trying to talk trash. He goes, I'm about to dunk on you. And I was like, yes. Yeah, you've done it 40 times. Why would this time be any different?
You're the dunker. Around here. I'm kind of more the amusing guy.
Yeah, I just threw the ball to the ref. I got so scared.
Anthony DeVito's in studio. Anthony's debut album, Dream Occupation, is available now on iTunes, and his podcast, The Rad Dudecast, is also available on iTunes, and AnthonyDeVitoComedy.com for all of Anthony's dates.
Just put an extra vowel in
Yeah,
there.
just throw an extra I, DeVito.
The video. You came here on a bad day with him. I don't know what's going on, but he is not seen.
I was about to say, this is Chris's best day.
It is.
This is my best day
That's the
for me.
sad thing. You're right. Is this your dream occupation, or is this what you always wanted to do?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I did architecture for a little bit out of college, but I always knew I wanted to do this.
Right.
Just too, nervous to give it a shot, and then eventually did.
You know, this thing that we're doing right now, I used to skip school to do. I would be like, why don't we just leave here?
hang out.
Yeah, we'll go hang
yeah.
out
Joke about some
and
stuff.
talk.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'll even say to my parents, I go, I was really preparing for my own career. You thought that I was a problem child.
Right.
This is exactly what
Yeah.
I needed to be doing to
Right.
move
Totally.
ahead in this business.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I still get amazed that it's a job. You know what I mean? Like when I'm up there doing stand up, when it's so fun, it's like, how is this?
Right.
People hate their jobs.
I know.
And yeah, it's just, it's still crazy to me.
Do you think that you would have been able to make it in the regular world? Do you think you
No.
would have been able to do 9 to 5? Yeah.
Absolutely. If I was an architect, people would be dead. There's no way I could have designed a building. Yeah, absolutely not.
The rail just comes off.
Dude, I wake up.
God.
Yeah, I wake up in cold sweats about buildings I worked on in Little Ferry when I worked at a firm in Jersey. If you're around there, just avoid the area. I don't know what's going to collapse.
Also, that's such a hard thing that you
Yeah.
can design a building that they don't build. Or
Yes.
to build, there you go. We may build it in New York City. It sometimes takes decades before
Yeah.
they'll okay the building.
I mean, they've been working on a 3-story apartment building in my neighborhood for like 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. I think there's just like 4 units in there. It's so small.
Well, you'll see like a building that they'll go, okay, this is going to become a big building, and they do nothing with it. And I'm like, why don't you just leave that fucking restaurant there for 10 years, collect the rent? They're like, no, this is going to turn into like $6 billion.
Right.
And we're done with
It's
it.
just scaffolding for 4 years. Yeah.
I saw this building in Miami now where they have a lift for the cars in the building. So you're up on the 40th
Oh, wow.
floor, but there's a garage there that you put it
Right.
in and a car elevator.
Weird.
Who the fuck wants their
No.
car up there with them?
Nope, I don't want that. Why is my car up here?
I can't. I mean, what a call to you need a friend more than that. When you need your car there, like,
Yeah.
oh, I need my buddy here with me.
Chrissy, will you ever move out of your place?
I mean, it's too cheap to move out.
Yeah,
It's $700 a month.
And you can't own it?
Huh.
You could never buy it?
I guess I could buy it, but
No, it's not for sale. They would tell you
Yeah.
if it was for
they
sale.
would have contacted me by now.
Yes.
Right.
They are waiting till one day they burn you out, I imagine. What are people paying for condos in your building?
I think it's between $350,000 and $500,000
I
for
can't
one
believe
bedroom.
it's that fucking cheap.
Or
Everything in
Between
mine,
what?
$350 and $500.
Wow. Yeah.
that's incredibly cheap for
For
New
one
York.
bedroom, right?
Yeah, for one bedroom. I don't know what the two bedrooms are.
I know in my building, because I rent, but the people who buy in my building, it's none of them are below $455, and they're one bedrooms. Yeah, it's crazy.
If you know what the fucking price they put in my place, it's ridiculous. And I'll be like, I'm just not care. Hopefully I'll die before anything works out anyway.
I don't want to do all this paperwork, and that sounds like a lot of money.
Well, that's another thing. Like, if you want to have a business head, even when you're rich, you're still negotiating against people who are poor, and you're trying to take those people from 100 to 125. And the second I get any money in my pocket, I'm just like, hey, everybody, we're having a good time. Money's for spending. Why would I want? No, I want us all to feel good. Chrissy, I want you to hit that $500,000. Is that tomorrow? $500 million.
$500 million. That's drawing is tomorrow, Saturday.
Wow.
$500 million Powerball.
I could use that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I have a
Yeah.
couple things I would like to buy with that money.
Yeah.
Here's how you will know whether I hit. If I don't show up on Monday, and none of you hear a call from
Can't you
me.
just text me?
No, that fucking phone's going in the river.
Bennington changes to Stanley.
I like the idea that you win and your first order of business is chuck your phone in the
Yes.
East River.
yeah, Ron,
everyone
you could
I
just
know.
do that now.
I fucking need this shit.
Need the victory, man. We could go after this.
As soon as I get on the other side of the bridge, I'm getting my hair dyed. Everything's Voice change.
New name.
Yeah. Chris, we plug on this show, okay?
Of course, yes, of course. Mr. DeVito, I apologize. Anthony DeVito is in studio. Anthony's debut album, Dream Occupation, is available now on iTunes. Anthony's podcast, The Red Dudecast, is available also on iTunes. And Talking Sports and Other Stuff airs Mondays through Thursday at 11 p.m. East on the MSG network. And on the iBang, Anthony has an five ways to nail a job interview.
Oh,
nice.
Nice. So give us a couple of these. What are we gonna do?
I think one of them was a power moves. I think was part of it, where I think that's where if you were offered a seat, you don't take it. You stand the whole time.
Good.
Shows dominance.
That's good.
If they they ask you for a coffee, you take the coffee, but you drink it all in one gulp.
Love it.
Yeah. And then you look at your wristwatch and you go, time.
I like the idea of that. And when I was younger, I would always go on job interviews that I didn't want, just to spend a little time getting better at job interviewing. One of the things, I was at the hospital to be a surgeon. And I just said, I honestly said to them, don't even pay me the first day. Let me do it, right? And if you like what you see, I'll be back.
Sounds fair.
If not, you lose nothing.
The other side of it, they're like, and I mean, this guy did come with his own knife, so that's cool.
But did he have to brandish it as he walked in?
A friend of mine filled out a job interview, and he actually wrote this thing. Because remember, before, like, you have a resume, it's just like, why do you want to work here?
Sure.
Right.
And he wrote, and this was the funniest moment to me, if I could teach myself karate, I'm sure I could learn anything that you had to do. And I read this, and I was fucking dying.
Like, you kind of have to pull that guy in for an interview at that point.
Yeah.
Like, that's enough to get you in.
I give him a week. We gotta see what he exactly.
It's like when Anthony played one-on-one against his mom. That might not have been karate you taught yourself. All right, that's up on the iBang, and I like that. Chris, how are you doing an interview? Because you're not an overly confident guy.
Oh, I'm awful at an interview. It's fucking terrible.
You're a bad interviewer?
Yeah, of course I am, yeah. I don't want to fucking deal with these people's questions.
Did I even tell anybody how you ended up working for me? Do you mind if I tell that?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go right ahead, yeah.
So, he was our intern for a long time, and then the other guy said, I'm going to leave because I have to come in from Long Island, the guy who actually worked for me in Chris's job. And we're like, oh. But he goes, but Chris would be really good at this job, and he's learned it. So me and Fez are like, yeah, okay. And then Chris says right after that, can I talk to you? Which I thought that he'd already alerted you.
I had no fucking clue of this.
And then he started saying he wouldn't be able to intern anymore, and he needed to get paid. And then he started crying.
It was not good. I really didn't want to go.
So while he was crying, I go like this. You really pushed me pretty far, but I'm going to offer you the job right now. And then he stopped his tears. He's going, really? But he honestly cried.
Yeah, it was.
But that was just a thing of timing, right? I mean, it was
just crazy timing.
Was it Pitsy?
Pitsy. It was Pitsy who left, yeah.
But that's really funny that you don't let on that you know what? I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
You convinced me, dude. And he's like,
you pushed me, kid.
That is so sweet. I actually did not know that story that you shed tears. It's the sweetest thing.
Yeah.
I never saw him cry since. He faked crying when Fez left, but that was it.
That was real. Those were real tears.
People swore that you faked.
I remember everybody was saying it sounded like you were faking it.
I wasn't faking crying.
Because you were like this. You made a weird...
That's how you cry?
But you must have really... Did you think that you just gave, like, an ultimatum and got what you wanted that day?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it felt kind of good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah.
This is all bullshit.
No, it wasn't. I mean, we could have given the job to... we didn't even put the job up.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
Now they force you to put the job up.
Which seems almost worse. Like, if you have someone in mind, then you're going to interview people that don't have a chance?
It's weird. You're like, okay, like normally you're like, okay, Chris, you've been here a long time. I'm going to give the job to you. Then they force you to talk to people who are way more qualified than him. You're like, oh, fuck, I would like to Use that new person.
They don't cry at all.
They're
Stiff
adults.
upper lip through the whole interview.
I won't be able to do this anymore.
It was bad.
Can't
get
tell
it.
you how much I love this business, but there's no place for me.
That's sweet,
I go
though.
like this, Chris. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break down and pay you.
I get
Thank
it.
you.
I get it. It's a scary thing. There's confrontation. I understand. I left a job once and I never quit anywhere before. I worked there for like a couple of years. Didn't know how to do that. Freaked out. Made up a story that I was moving to San Diego. Then had to do research on San Diego for the next 2 weeks to like convince everybody in the office. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. San Diego's gonna be great.
yeah.
You know, they got the Padres.
I'm just sitting at my desk typing away like, oh, Ocean Beach. You can't believe these prices.
Can you believe I'm 51 miles to Tijuana? Yeah, most of the year it's going to be 78 to 87. We got to go to a break. Thank you so much
Yeah, of
for
course.
hanging in
man.
here.
I love you guys.
Sorry that Chris fucked us over with Greg Stone. He would have been here by now.
Please.
It would have been the best.
Well, Anthony DeVito's been in studio. Anthony's debut album, Dream Occupation, is available now on iTunes. Anthony's podcast, The Rad Dudecast, is available now, also on iTunes. AnthonyDeVitoComedy.com for all of Anthony's dates. On Twitter at @AnthonyDeVito_ and Talking Sports and Other Stuff airs Mondays through Thursdays at 11 p.m. Eastern on the MSG Network. And Anthony's article, 5 Ways to Nail a Job Interview, is up on the Interbank.
So great. That's
Super
so great.
funny.
You are busy, my friend.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're all proud of you. We're all
Thanks, man.
we're all
I
big
appreciate
fans and
that,
have
man.
been
I really
for a long time. All right, we're right back, Bennington. Hey, it's the Bennington Show. Can you believe it's August 18th already?
I cannot.
That means
Weird.
if you haven't been to the beach, you're probably not getting to the beach.
I mean, I hate to say it this way, but you fucked up.
I get panicky this time of the year.
Yeah, like late August begins that feeling of, have I done enough? Have I enjoyed the time that I could be outside?
There's part of that and part of, wow, am I really going to be watching football 8 hours a day in a couple of weeks?
And being fine with it?
Yeah, and the answer is yes. To be like a beautiful full day. You going out today? I'd love to, but I've got so many games to go through. Chris, are you putting together the funniest man and the funniest person in the world contest?
Yes, I am.
The
yes.
football contest?
Yes, the Highlander.
Do we have our exciting prize yet?
Not yet. I am working on it, but we will have one.
Let's try to think of what names we'd love to have something signed. I think last year, did we give out Joe Montana?
Joe Montana signed football.
It's tough to beat that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the top of the top.
Can we get something signed by O.J. Simpson to remember the year?
Chris.
I can go after it.
No.
Don't know if I can get it.
He's out and about now.
All right, let's all go through and say who their dream person to sign something would be. Vito, I see you leaning in already, so I'm going to let you go.
Marshawn Lynch.
What?
Because it's current.
Beast mode?
Yeah.
He just went to the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to do really well this
Do
year.
you know the kind of names that we've had in the past, though? I mean,
know.
to me, this is closer to a Johnny Unitas thing. Jen, what do you think?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady always works.
That would be good. That would be good.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. Gail?
Mr. Dan Marino.
Dan Marino, the only thing that hurts is he never won a Super Bowl. If he had one Super Bowl ring, I'll tell you this, Florentine will fight tooth and nail to win the Dan Marino.
You know he'll be playing hard for it.
Justin, who would you like to say?
Yeah, Jim Thorpe, of course.
Jim Thorpe. I don't know whether they even signed things.
Yeah, they
We might find out that the Jim Thorpe is worth $400,000. Chris Stanley, who do you got?
Bo Jackson. I think a Bo Jackson ball. People would be super hyped.
That is a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a good one. Marshawn Lynch looks smaller and smaller all the time, right?
Beast mode.
So many great ones. I mean, for me, there's only one person, and it's always Joe Willie Namath, a man who not only scored on the field, but off the field.
Oh.
And that's why I use this shaving deodorant. It deodorizes, and I can shave my face with it.
Let's say Jim Thorpe signed a bunch of baseballs, but no footballs.
All right, let's do that for the World Series.
Okay. Thorpe ball.
So we're at the end of the summer, and Vito, have you been to the Jersey Shore yet?
No.
Chris Stanley, have you been to the Jersey Shore yet?
Nowhere near it.
Well, Jen, you live in Jersey, so you have been to Jersey
Yeah,
Shore?
I've been a few
What
times.
beach you go to?
I go to Belmar. I like Belmar a lot.
Oh.
I would say it's classy. It has like kind of like the older
Yeah.
vibe to it. Like Seaside is like too young for me. It's like
Wow,
teenagers.
you're
they
already
get a
at
little
that.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know because they're annoying on the beach. They
They're
are
very annoying.
particularly for Jen because she wears a thong to the beach.
Da dong, da dong, dong, dong. I like to make your booty go. She got dumped like a truck.
I remember when I was the teenager, I was always like, "Why are these people fucking yelling at us at the beach?" And now I get it now. We were annoying. To me, this is. I don't know if there's anything more annoying. The people on the beach. Now everyone around the country doesn't know this, but just think of packed beach. It gets packed on the East Coast.
Yeah.
No one should be throwing a football. Put your fucking football down.
I fucking hate football dudes who are always at the edge of the water, which means they are annoying both the swimmers and the people who are laying out. They're not far back. You know, if you want to play a sport, you got to go far back where the sand is dry, away from, you want to play volleyball, you want to play your fucking football, fine. Do it there. But don't do it at the edge of the water while you're throwing it while people are swimming and laying out. I hate those guys.
There is a designated volleyball area on the beach. No one hates them. Also, you have noticed, I don't hate the skimboarders that are running and using that area. Why? Because it's a water sport and you're water sporting. Are you in the way? Yeah. But you know what? I get it. You're fun. You're fun people.
Yeah.
Football people, I don't want to see it. You tackle your buddy. Okay, I know you're both so tough, but stop it.
No projectiles on the beach. That's what I feel like.
You don't even like to see a frisbee thrower?
No, I don't like a frisbee thrower. Hell no.
Frisbee throwers annoy me a lot less than football throwers.
I dislike them, but you're right. Football thrower is much more aggressive, and with the tackling, it's totally obnoxious.
Jen, who do you hate on the beach?
I hate so I do like the boardwalk. I don't like getting sand on my toes. So I do the boardwalk stroll. I'm not much of a sand person. So like I hate like the cat calling from the like when you go on the boardwalk
wear a
and see
thong.
Dong dong dong.
Now,
Dump like a truck.
now, what do they say? Cat calling.
When you're wearing your bathing suit, it's like, ooh, mommy. That's why I just can't. I don't like it. So I don't like the
Puerto
teenage.
Ricans, by just saying that.
I will tell you this. It's a very strange thing that happens. You're on the beach and you are not getting catcalled. You're left alone. You wear that same outfit on the boards and they're like, whoa, look at whose tits are out. It's like, yeah, this is a bathing suit. I was wearing it just feet. Oh, go. This is totally fine.
Kat, do you remember when you and your little brother, you guys were young, and I would take you guys out and we would act like we were being inappropriate with women on the beach?
Yeah.
We were like, look at this one. I had the video camera and the kids would be like, she's unbelievable. And we think it was like you're catcalling, but with two small children.
It works well for you.
Like 6 and 3, And I'm like, look at this one. And we thought it was the funniest shit ever. And some girls would be like, oh, that's so funny and cute. And some girls would be like, get the fuck out of here. You're disgusting. You even have your kids with you. Disgusting fucker. Is this yours, Gail? Did you, are you a cat caller?
Am I a cat caller?
No, are you?
Oh, no, that was Jen's pick. Yeah, my pick would be the beach spreader. They're calling it now. So this is like people are actually just recently wrote an article about it, and it's up on the iBang as well. Is the person who takes up, and it's usually a family, way too much fucking space. And I've been noticing this each summer more and more. So opposed to just having one single towel, maybe a large towel for a family and a little umbrella, these people are bringing like tents, like multiple tents, multiple giant blankets, multiple umbrellas. It's fucking insane. So a family of like 4 or 5 is now taking up the room that a good 30 people used to be able
now
to
let
take.
me. I'm going to take a look at. Get the picture as big as you can for me too, Chris. I'm not thinking I have a problem with this because, to me, this family has to get here at 7:00 in the morning to do this, right? So they are committed. I was thinking, I don't like creepers as much. Somebody who comes up and puts their blanket right next to yours, right?
Right.
But these people are saying, and it's almost like the gold rush or whatever. They got here first.
Claimed it.
Yeah.
They lay out way too much space, and they're like, "This is our zone, and we're going to take up as much room as humanly possible."
All right. First of all, they are attempting to make these people look like either Jews or Italians, and playing cards on the beach. And, you got, it looks like Grandpa and the kid. I mean, playing cards to me. Hi, Jewish family.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, let's get here and have some indoor fun.
But I'm seeing more and more tents.
Like canopy tents or
yeah,
camping tents? I've seen the big
both.
cabana tents, and then I've seen camping tents that are just what's the point of going to the beach if you're going to sit in a tent the whole time?
I've seen both, and it's very, very strange.
It'd be insanely hot.
Yeah, it's hot. It's weird. And the canopy tents take up so much room. And then these people are also bringing full pieces of furniture as well. Like they're bringing, not only are they bringing chairs, umbrella, tents, they're like little tables, plus all their food, which is in coolers, plus another fucking cooler, plus all their bags with their...
I'm going to say this, though.
That is intense. What do you need? I would say a large blanket. That's enough. That's enough. That's
First
enough.
of all, I don't want to carry, but you know what? They've done it. I mean, they're like African safari. Maybe they can buy some handlers to go up there with them.
It's so annoying. But
now,
the person that you brought up, the person who puts their towel way too close to you when there's obviously enough room to move it over, I would say that. Plus the people who are upstreamers, where you think that you have taken the perfect viewpoint. And you're like, okay, I got it. And then they're going to take that little inch of sand and then go directly in front of you. And you're like, no, I'm just looking at you. I was supposed to be in my mind, I was like, no one else is here.
Right.
This person isn't here. This last weekend, I went to Fire Island, sprawling fucking beach. So much room.
Not crowded?
Not crowded at all.
because you got to basically live there to go to that beach. I mean, you're going out on Fire Island. You want to have a place to sleep, and they don't have hotels and shit like that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I think there's maybe one small kind of hotel, but for the most part, it's people who are renting somebody's full-time home. So these people are there for a couple days. I went for a day trip because a friend of mine a couple I know is staying there for a full week. But it was exhausting for a day trip. It's a haul to get out there. Then you get on a fucking ferry. There's no cars on the island, so their house is a good 1.5 mile walk from the ferry. So you have to
golf cart it.
No, there's only a couple golf carts, and it looks like they're reserved for people with disabilities. But for the most part,
I didn't know that. I thought it was a golf cart place.
Everyone walks.
Everyone's walking. Some people have some bikes and stuff like that, but for the most part, everyone's walking. And the people who are walking, there's only one grocery store, and everyone has a wagon, and they fill their wagon up with their groceries or their beer or their wine or whatever.
Kinda great.
It's not like any other place I've ever been in the world. But the craziest thing was getting to the beach. This was a beautiful day, a day that normally I go to the Rockaways or Fort Tilden, and it would have been packed. Yeah. There's so much room, and big waves for whatever reason that day.
This
legit
is a good
surfers
place to beach spread.
Right, exactly. You would be allowed to beach spread there. You wouldn't be bothering anyone.
I will say this: I kind of don't hate the beach spreaders. I feel like they've earned their right. I don't feel like a person like me should come down at 2:00 in the afternoon. And what the fuck? Look how much room they got. These people have been out there for 18 hours. It's like a lot of a park. A family will go and they'll take up 3 picnic tables and stuff. And I'm like, I hate that, but I do admire their get up and go.
We've been here since 6 a.m. Yeah. I find these beach spreaders to be a menace to the beaches, especially when you're someplace like Rockaway or Brighton Beach. Places that get really fucking packed because there's only a handful of nice weekend days, and you're just just give me some room.
Here's what my favorite thing is to be at a hotel where you have the pool and the ocean. so you can
Yeah.
have some time there. But you're not like, oh, I'm here at the ocean for the next 18 hours. That's too much. I want to be able to go into the fucking hotel room, take a piss there, maybe get a little drink at a fucking beach bar.
Oh, yeah.
Relax a little bit.
Yeah, that was like the really great thing. It's been a long time since I had that experience because then you can go pool to ocean. You're like, all right, I'm sick of this saltiness. Back to the chlorine, please.
Right.
Like, and
The
then
shower's set up.
then they had the fucking beautiful outdoor shower thing. Fucking to be a rich gay man. To be a rich gay man. I was just like, these people are living
First
the
of all,
dream.
that's redundant. They're all rich.
They do well for themselves.
Yeah, they do.
They're like two males. Usually, a lot of times don't have a family, and if they do, they have like one.
They're
kid,
already
like
set
one
up to
adopted-
have a family. There's
Yeah.
no accidents
Right.
in the gay
Right.
pregnancy. They decide to have a family.
Oops, we got a surrogate. I don't know how it happened. I'm not ready for this.
I'd be like, David Geffen, I think it's time for you and I to have children. But I will. The idea of a beach bar is maybe the greatest thing that's ever happened. But you have a bar, right? Think how great that is when you have a bar. Then there's a fucking beach right there.
That's the shit.
That's fucking crazy.
And let me tell you this: a beach bar, like food, like a beach bar burger, to me is better than any fancy
Bang.
burger. Like a thin patty, like American
It's
cheese.
just satisfying.
You're just like,
You know
you're
what I would-
starving because you've just come out of the ocean. Like, you're not hungry like the way you are, like, after swimming.
But here's the thing. I would make this statement to you that I would only say at a beach bar. Why are you eating a burger? They got fish sandwiches here. Like, when else do you want to sit around and eat a fucking grouper sandwich? And it tastes much better than it should. Because you're like, there's your home, but I'm eating it like I'm another place. And you are drinking things that you would never drink indoors.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Pina colada? Why would I order that at a bar?
Why would a man?
Yeah. Yeah, immediately. You should not be drinking anything brown. Like, no brown
no.
liquor
Yeah.
outdoors.
Fucking
No.
daiquiri.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You need a daiquiri. Daiquiri.
We're all having daiquiris, and why do I have this throbbing headache? I better daiquiri my way out of it.
I also like a pina colada because it's like it's a boozy thing that tastes exactly like suntan lotion you just put on your skin. You're like, it tastes like me right now.
This is one of the things that fucked me up because I was a kid. I think I was probably 17, 18 years old. I went down to Florida and I'm on the Siesta Key.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why the fuck would I live any? I'm at a fucking beach bar with my friends. We're getting hammered. And I'm like, what are we, nuts?
Yeah.
Why are we living next to industry? We're down here. We're going to live like whatever we got to fucking do, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They need us to kill somebody. We'll stay here and kill people.
We'll bloodline this shit.
Yes. You're immediately thinking bloodline. You're like, there are so many elderly people that we could kill and rob. And they never have to go back. They'll never solve this.
Yeah, you go to a place like that and you start thinking, okay, how many months of the year am I freezing cold? Why does that make any sense?
And then you're willing to go under an elderly person's house and come out with a jar of termites going, I'm sorry, ma'am. I could probably take care of this. They're going to charge you $2,500. I'll do it for $450. Give me $450. You'll never see these termites that I have in this jar myself.
It's a
There's
good gimmick.
There's an MTV reality show in
It's a
Siesta
regular
Key.
gimmick down there. It's just fooling the elderly that they need stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Smart.
It happens all the time.
Smart, but you feel bad. Yeah, anybody who doesn't have their children close enough to catch you.
Get away, you
There you
beast.
go, no, go, hey, I'm going to check your place for termites. Free.
Stay away
Free.
from my Nana.
We know you brought in a jar of your own termites, dude. Don't fucking set them loose as a way of getting even with me. So, we got into worst person on the beach, but now we're just getting around saying why the beach is the best. And why is the beach the best? What is it about the ocean that you just want to be near?
Ocean air is pretty great. Just getting hit with that ocean breeze.
Unbelievable. Did you ever notice this, that when you're walking along right there in the surf, and you're singing, you're like, I never realized how great my fucking voice is.
Oh yeah, it does sound good.
Because the fucking ocean stops your voice from getting the real sound to you.
Right. It like kind of dulls out like anything that's sharp or like nasal or obnoxious about your voice. You're like,
no, I'm always doing whatever. Sail on, sail. Like it's always ocean music, you know? Also, it just feels like if you lived at the beach, you could be half crazy all the time. And people are like, well, that's him. He's a maniac.
He's a beach
He's
person.
kind of our Quint. Here's another guy that I hate on a crowded beach, right? The guy who is up, let's say, to his fucking knees, and he's still casting and fishing around children. I'm looking for fish right here.
yeah, because you know what I think of every time that happens? I'm thinking I'm going to get hooked right in my foot.
That's how people get hooked in the foot.
It's like not, and plus your line could break.
Yeah.
Then that hook is just going to be like in the sand right there, and someone's going to walk by.
This would always happen too in fucking Florida. I'd be walking on the beach, and a guy would just have his fucking rod in one of those holders, and he'd have a couple of them on the beach. If I walk by and there's, I'll just fucking pick it up and I'll just start fucking bringing it in.
That's my fish, dude.
Yeah, the guy will come over here. That's my rod. I go, yeah, but you weren't here. I'm pulling this thing right up right now. I'm going to let you keep the fish. I don't want it, but I'd like to pull it up to the beach and let him know who pulled them in. I don't want to confuse him.
Man, I just thought of another person I hate at the beach. I can't believe there's multiple, really obnoxious people. All right, so this is one that I don't remember from when I lived in Florida. It's only up here. Up north, and it's people who are working on their tans, but it's a very specific thing that they stand instead of lay down, so they get a no tan line situation, and they can move with the sun, so it's full on. But they're just the one person standing up in the middle of the sand for like an hour. And like when you're trying to just like relax on the beach and then you're just like, oh, that guy's still like standing there. And then like I get paranoid. I'm like, is he looking at me or what's he doing? Like, I've never seen it anywhere but up
more
north.
likely men or women doing that?
I have mostly seen older men. This is usually men over the age of, I would say 50 some, maybe even mostly in their 60s. And they're always like, usually in Speedos, which like whatever you want to wear. I don't judge. You can wear whatever you like for the beach, but they're usually very serious about their tan, and they're just standing up in full starfish pose, just trying not to get. It annoys the shit out of me, and I never saw this in Florida.
Here's why: in Florida, you don't have to work on your tan; you just have a tan.
Right? You do yard work.
You're describing both Jews and Italian who have a relationship with a tan. Like you wouldn't believe. They over tan.
Yeah.
Now, I know when you get older, a tan makes you look younger. There's no doubt about it. But it also is going to make your skin look older. You're fucking punishing your stupid skin.
Yeah. That leathery look that you can see a lot of times. The Long Island people have it. Jersey,
and you know what? By the way, a leathery look looks great on a professional fisherman.
Right.
Because it looks like, oh man, that guy's worked a real life. Not, oh, that guy stands like a starfish and just moves around with the sun.
It bothers everyone at the beach.
My mom goes to downtown every day to get a tan every weekend and comes back and she's like, I didn't get any color today. I'm like, you're fucking red. Like,
your mom is very tan.
So she got a membership at Chelsea Piers and she just sits on the water. On the pier, and she's
in a bathing suit.
In a bathing suit, she said it's like her favorite thing because it's the hassle of not going to the beach because you just have a chair there. You're on the water.
She always has a solid tan. I'm surprised.
First of all, you're on the river. You're not on the water.
It's a body of water.
Chelsea, yeah, there's a difference. We're sitting here talking about a lovely ocean,
salt.
and she's sitting next to the Hudson all day.
Why don't you take her out to the Rockaways?
She doesn't like the travel, because
she calls them the too far Rockaways.
The trip to Rockaway is like an hour 20-minute from the city, and she's just like, there's a beach chair 10 minutes from here.
As soon as you're a bed, son.
What? It has nothing to do with me.
You could convince her to go to the beach. Or
by the way, you know how we get on? Like, I'll get on Vito about you're back to the same thing. The fucking Chelsea Pier he talks about constantly. It's fucking constant.
It's a hot
I don't mention America as much as he talks about the Chelsea Pier. You and your family never beach people, right?
No, never beach
City
people.
pool folks?
City pool sometimes, go to a story pool occasionally. My mom had very fair skin, as fair as mine, so she didn't like going into the sun. She burned.
Do you notice that he started that like it was a fairy tale? My mother had fair skin, fair as snow.
There's a nice public pool uptown on 114th, right by the Rayo's place. It's like it's one of the biggest pools I've ever seen in the city, and just no trouble. Like it's really nice, spread out.
That is
Racist.
No, I just meant like
Racist.
there's no trouble. Like you're not arguing for.
I know what you said. You said 114th Street, and then you said no
You had
trouble.
to specify.
I meant no trouble in the water.
I don't fucking like racism, dude. It's fucking.
You know that about him.
You know, I'm not. You know what? You call it the alt right. I call you the alt wrong.
I'm not alt anything.
That's good.
Yeah, I know.
It's really good.
Feel proud of that.
I'm just saying it's a nice pool. You should go
I don't
there.
like fucking tiki torches and people fucking chanting, "You will not replace us," when I'm trying to get my starfish tan.
I have no tiki torches.
I thought Astoria had the biggest fucking in the.
I never heard of this uptown pool. That
I
he's
take a
talking
look at it. Then you got a thing there. You put uptown pool. You put images.
He just wrote Uptown Funk.
Uptown pool going to splice you up.
Put 114th Street.
Come on, dude. What are you fucking waiting for?
It's
Give
just
me the
not just
images.
called Uptown
I
Pool.
I think it's that Marcus Garvey one.
Marcus Garvey.
I'm not sure. Oh, Thomas Jefferson Pool. Thomas Jefferson
That's
Pool.
an indoor pool.
No,
Vito.
Thomas
That's
Jefferson
fucking
pool.
hideous. There's nothing about this pool.
I will say this doesn't look like there's any trouble there.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Stabbing.
It was just
There's
empty.
a stabbing right there.
It's really empty.
Now
Nobody
turn
goes.
to your scenic pool in your neighborhood.
All right, I'm going to show you some
And now
shit.
remember this fucking. Is it Marcus Garvey?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. Look how long it takes them to fucking get anything.
It's the internet.
Is it?
Yes.
Because I hear you're typing forever. Now look at
that's
his.
awesome.
And look, you got the bridge. What bridge is that, Chris?
That is the Triborough.
Wait, when I go over the Triborough, I never see a pool there.
I know.
Or,
And look how much bigger that is than the shitty
That's
Vito.
beautiful.
look
I
at-
want to go there.
But look at all those people. Look at all that trouble.
those are fine Greek families,
You know what?
Vito.
Why don't you become a fucking realtor then, Vito? Because you got the code words down. Trouble.
Oh my god. You know, I love swimming so much, but I never find I want to be able to swim for exercise because it's so good for you and it's fun to actually do it, but I can't bring myself to do a fucking public.
I don't know
pool.
what how you go about it. I've always wanted to too, but I'm like, I don't know if you go one time or like what the process is of waiting to
I
get
hear
into
it
the
does
pool.
you. The only thing that is good is to get your cardiovascular
Yeah,
up.
that's what
it
it's good
does.
for.
Nothing for your body because there's no resistance. You're in the pool, and then also you never really heat your body up.
Interesting.
Right?
So
if
you
anything
can't.
makes you hungry,
So you can't burn calories. You're
you don't
just
burn
doing.
a lot of
it's just
calories
good for your
compared
heart.
to like running or stair walking
Interesting,
or any
yeah.
of that stuff. You'd be better off going up next to Vito's mom and just sit next to the.
Might as well.
You want a guest pass?
I actually
back
don't. I don't need that kind of trouble.
No, there's no trouble there.
Look, the story is perfectly safe.
Did we figure out what the movie of the summer has been? It doesn't seem like we've had a Raiders of the Lost Ark type thing
No, there wasn't
where
like
we're all agreeable here.
I thought Spider-Man was going to be, but apparently it had the worst opening of any Spider-Man movie.
Well,
That's almost embarrassing to say. The reason why is there's too many Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies. And you're going to reboot it? I'm
Yeah.
going to see him as a teenager, not knowing he's going to be Spider-Man again?
Again.
I can't do it.
Also,
Too
I
much
don't
Spidey.
like a hero whose face is covered. It's fucking ridiculous. You don't getting his fucking.
Yeah. Deadpool's the same
At-
thing. It's
at
mostly
least
just
have
CGI
him-
and a stuntman.
At least have the mouth out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you got a little, like a
And his
little
name
bar
is-
across the eyes.
A Batman
that's fine.
situation, you mean?
And he's not even like
Yeah.
this. I'm Spider-Man. I got a lot of problems. I'm bit by a spider. I don't need you stealing stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't put on a cool voice.
I want to swing over here. What? Swing somewhere? So there wasn't a movie of the summer.
No, I think this summer was just pretty weak in general. Like
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I don't think you could be a 2 and be the big thing. I think you got to surprise people. I think
it's
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or Spider-Man the reboot.
Spider-Man 1 million.
Yeah, you're not. You need that thing like, hey, I didn't see this coming.
I think Wonder Woman was like that.
I'm going to give it to Wonder Woman. I think you were correct.
That was my
And I've heard people go like this. This is great for women. And I'm like, what are you, nuts? That you get your own superhero? That's great. You're moving women along. You're nuts. She kicks ass like women do. Like, why do you just want to be a weaker version of a man? Why can't you find the positivity of being a woman? She has a lasso.
Yeah. Tell the truth.
But yes, Wonder Woman is the movie of the summer. Jen, go get yourself a piece of that pie. Boys, you're not eating any pie today.
Come on.
No Friday pie day.
Guardians is worth a pie piece.
And Jen getting a piece of pie is good for women in general,
Yes.
so I'm happy. That's a move in the right direction.
Women are eating pie. Don't you boys have an opinion about it? You're the oppressors, not our equals. I just want to say this. Coming up at 2:00. Is it right after after our next break?
Yes, it is.
Wow. We're going to be doing Greg Giraldo, Life and Comedy. Let's just read off a list of the names of the people we have.
Colin Quinn, Dave Attell, Jim Gaffigan, Tom Papa, Lisa Lampanelli, Jim Norton, Nick DiPaolo, Robert Kelly, Rich Voss, Jim Florentine, Andy Kindler, Vinny Brand, owner of the Stress Factory, and Matt Balker, the author of an upcoming book about Greg Giraldo.
This is awesome. It's really such a great piece for so many reasons, but like one of the things about it that I think is so great is how incredibly personal this one is, because these people who were his peers that you're speaking with just loved him so much and have just such a personal connection, and it's a really, really great piece.
And yes, he was loved and admired, and I guess this is something for people to say, did he let that in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did he get that? And I had a young comic, me and him were sitting out front, and he's like, I'm just trying to blah, 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 trying to do this. I'm like, could you just try to go back and say to yourself, I'm a regular at the fucking stand in New York City, and that when you were a kid living in South Jersey, because he's from South Jersey, if someone said you're going to become a guy who's welcomed at a fucking New York comedy club, you'd be freaking out. And you'd be telling your teachers, fuck you, motherfuckers. Like that would have been your goal, Yeah. And it's hard sometimes when you're goal oriented to realize just how lucky you are. You tell people, like, look, who says, like, I have a dead-end job is privileged people. You know what I mean? Like, most people would not think I have a dead-end job. They're like, I'm eating. And I'm able to even take some of that food and give them to people in my family.
Yeah.
You have to be a fairly privileged person to say that my job isn't rewarding. Because the initial idea for any job was food,
Yeah.
And what happens in comedy, well, Giraldo gets into this, guys get into talking about, he kept getting pilots that didn't work out. Now, by the way, a lot of times when you get a pilot, they'll hand you $100,000.
Right.
Sometimes more. You can't sit around and go, you know what? People believe in me enough. I keep getting pilots. He started to feel like a failure. But I don't know if any amount of success could have helped him until he made the turn, whatever the turn was. And by the way, I suffer from the same stuff that he did. So do most of the people I know. Most of the people I know have substance abuse, and a lot of that is because there's something deeper that they haven't gotten to yet. Now, if you're born a pea brain like Vito, those things aren't going to bother you. Vito is every day like, I did good work today. I'm like, Vito, no, you didn't. He goes, I did. Because he doesn't get it. And you don't care about good stuff. He thinks shit is great. He's like, because he likes shit and he eats shit. He's like,
delicious shit.
Shit is food. And I'm trying to say, it isn't, Vito. So you're the exact opposite, but you're suffering just as bad. You're a wasted life.
I didn't realize that until now.
I know that's the problem.
But you know what?
You don't realize that, and you won't again in another 5 minutes.
Okay.
And
You're just going to go back to eating your own shit.
Thank you, Chris.
And the best part about this is I was learning so much about Geraldo.
Yeah.
And then it made me realize just what a piece of shit Vito was, and I wasn't really expecting that.
And that means he's a piece of shit, and he eats shit. He's
Right.
eating himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is cannibalism.
I don't want to be a cannibal. And I
No,
don't-
the thing is, what is the reason to do stuff if you can't appreciate its effect? But I think a lot of times when you create, you're like, I want to make the most beautiful thing that ever happened, and then you make something that's great. You know, everyone's like, this thing is great, and you're like, you don't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to make the most beautiful thing ever,
Right.
which is a crazy thing to want anyway.
Yeah, I think anybody who creates anything, you probably have to be kind of a nut to be like, step back and go, this thing is perfect. Like you're trying, like the idea to make something is that you're like trying to reach something that's completely unreachable. Like you said,
but is that insanity? And does that set up all
Right.
the pain in the world? And I definitely, if you said to like Da Vinci, oh, that fucking ceiling was great, and he was like, dude, that's like my fourth best ceiling, and I have to hear about it every fucking day how great it is. You know what I mean? Like that's what happens to people. Marty Scorsese, people are still bringing up to something that he made 40 years ago. Is that a good thing, or does that drive you nuts?
Right. That thing that happens to people when they're like, you are a living legend, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm currently the best thing going. Like it starts to bug them. instead of
Joan
feeling-
never wanted to be called a legend.
Yeah.
But just imagine if you were in AC/DC, how many times you had to say, yeah, you're right, but Back in Black really was a great album.
I still have some ideas for songs.
I'm very happy with Back in Black, like you are and everybody I meet every day. Chris, is it better to live your life and never even slightly peak? Never have anything to feel good about?
It's consistent, you know?
What's that mean? Why don't you be in the conversation rather than trying to guess?
I'm not guessing anything.
What are you doing then?
I'm talking to you.
In what way?
In a conversational way.
Why is the sentence so short?
I want to be concise with you.
Why?
Just start talking like a person.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing, you know?
No, you're not.
Okay.
You're having short sentences that you're hoping
It's not a race, it's conversation.
Yeah, you make me feel like a state cop every time you start to talk. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is my registration.
Is everything in order? No, there's nothing in this car.
Yeah, I know. Now you're trying to come up with the same examples of something we gave you. Instead of you saying it from the beginning of, hey, I feel like I'm talking to a state cop. You never do that. But then you wait till I say state cop, and then you come up with examples of what a person would do.
Yes.
So you think
So
never
anyway,
peak is what your answer is, Chris?
What I'm saying is worst person on the beach, Chris Stanley.
I'm awful.
On the beach.
Even if you
In the
can just
mountains.
see him from the beach or remember him. Who's the worst person on the beach? This guy at work. He's still in Queens today. He's been bugging me all day.
I mean, he still drives me nuts.
Anyway, here's somebody like Geraldo, who certainly was a brilliant performer, and he's unhappy. And there's Vito, somebody who doesn't even attempt the art, and he's as happy as a pig in shit. His own shit.
His own
which
shit that he
he,
eats.
that he eats and rolls in.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
there's nothing we have in the food world.
I mean, do you do anything without shit?
Do.
I just forgot. Now I remember how shitty I am.
Duties.
Do you ever feel like you've created something that you're proud of, Vito?
I felt like I created something in college I was proud of with my Bigfoot movie. I was pretty proud of that.
That's your peak?
Well, now that you're being paid to be creative, where's your Bigfoot movie here? You know why? Because there hasn't been a professor who told you that your Bigfoot movie is due. And that's not creativity. When someone tells you something is due and then you work hard on it. When I see a guy cramming that nobody asked him to, I'll go, there's somebody who loves this job. There's somebody who wants to make something. But are you ever going to make another movie now?
I want to, but I just haven't. I've talked to friends about it.
But if you were in school, you would fail out for not doing it. Therefore, you make it. This is the thing that drives me nuts about people.
This is what
And by the way, I went to his Bigfoot movie. Was laughing my fucking ass off. I mean, he's dressed up like Bigfoot, walking around Central Park, just acting like a regular guy. It was funny as shit. I was so proud of him. I haven't been proud of him a second. If anything, I'm quite let down.
How about the first time you saw him eat his own shit? I mean, if not proud, shocked.
Chris, why do you take it back to that spot? Vito and I were really having a fucking thing. I feel like it was enlightening for you, right?
No, it really wasn't.
You were proud of something that someone made you do. Does that not seem like you're a prisoner?
Well, that one in particular makes me feel good because all I had to do in that situation was make a 5-minute film, and then I went above what I was supposed to do and did a 25-minute movie about Bigfoot. So I need to bring that same energy.
You know why? The obstructions. Just like we have talked about before, it's like the 5 obstructions, which is the documentary Lars von Trier did. You had a situation. Make this film, make it this amount of time, make it like this. You limit yourself to doing something, and then you want to shatter the chains of what you have been given. You work as far as you can within that kind of cube that you're given, and then you go, what if I pushed outside of this? If you give yourself limitations, you will be more creative. So what you need to do is give yourself deadlines and things that you're like, let me make something that is like this, and you will push yourself to the extreme.
Now, here's the thing. You tell him that it's an absolutely great thing, and you see that he already fits into it. But he's not going to do it. Would it be right for us to force him into that all the time?
Well,
should I force him to work naked so he feels and finds a new way of clothing himself?
I think that would put you in the Lars von Trier position.
I
you
am
are
the
his
Lars von Trier,
of this show in so many ways.
I
So
don't
you
wanna
walk
be that.
around, you give us all obstructions. You say you can't do it like this.
Okay.
No shit for you to eat. This can't be shit
It's just starting to taste so good.
Let me see if I can do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to give everybody the obstructions to make them work out of that. And if you ever heard me when I did the Skank show, and they made me come up with the best racist, I gave it to the South and said, without the South being that racist, that Martin Luther King would have just been another preacher, telling everybody to show up to Pancake Sundays. But because these awful people were around him, they forced him to go out and make something. Well, I mean, he will never be forgotten now.
Yeah.
He's the most famous person ever. Literally down to where he has streets named after him. So I'm going to try to do that for the people here.
Okay.
All right. My obstruction for Chris, and I've known Chris the longest. I know Chris longer than I've known Gail.
That's true.
What?
So this is easy.
That's true.
And a professional.
Oh, yeah, true.
Chris.
Yes, Ron.
And I want to give him an obstruction, things that he
It's a limitation that he has to work within.
Perfect. Chris.
Yeah, Ron.
You're fired. I want you and your shit out of here in 5 minutes, or I'm going to have you arrested.
That's quite
Not
an
only will I have you arrested,
Yeah.
I'm uploading things to your computer that could lead to real problems. I'm putting a bloody knife in your desk
Whose
and
blood?
trying to get the police there. Get out of it.
I don't
Fight
like-
for your life,
I don't-
son.
Chris, you
fight for your life.
I gotta get the fuck out
Chris,
of here.
you feel creative yet?
I'm
You better think
terrified.
quick.
I'm gonna get arrested very quickly.
But no, this was a chance we all wanted to enlighten Vito and just have him being such, to stop being such a shit eater. And even more important, that if he ate shit, feel shame instead of pride.
Yeah.
But now you're telling me I'm the one who gets the enlightenment. I'm the one who has to take this shit eater and turn him into a workable, presentable member of society. And right now that seems impossible with shit crumbs on his lips and clothing and shit stents from his breath. But if I can do that, and God damn it, I might have accomplished something in my life. Chris, why are you still here? You're fired. I want you out.
Can we just go until we go to break? Can I just stay? Then I can get the fuck out of here.
No.
This is just, by the way, this is his getting over obstructions, begging. You know what I mean? Can I just please 3 minutes of life?
You
Come
can't
on.
bargain out of your obstruction.
Yes, that's the exact opposite of the obstruction.
Guess I'm fired.
Please don't take the obstruction away from me. Please.
I need this.
That was brilliant for you to bring that up because that's something all of us have.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is something I gave up from going terrestrial to here. You couldn't say fuck. You couldn't be lazy. You know what I mean? Every day we had to fight in a way of getting thoughts through to people, rather than just tell them off the top of our heads, oh, by the way, this guy's a cocksucker.
Right.
We had to think of phrases.
I would love to we should do one show one day. Everyone is on terrestrial rules, no cursing. I would love just to see what would happen.
Here's the thing. I still feel like I'd rather put us on terrestrial, where you could actually be in big fucking trouble.
Right.
For not.
There needs to
cursing.
be, something that actually motivates you to do it. Not just like you say fuck and then you go, oops.
All right, let's
I messed
do
up
this.
the game.
This could be a way. Every time someone says fuck, we put a cattle prod into the Vito's balls.
Oh, good idea.
That feels like we're back to the threat not being on everybody except for me.
Yeah, but this is your obstruction.
Yeah, well, you know how much we love you. We're crazy about you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's going
I
to
don't-
hurt all of us to see you in pain.
I don't want to
I
see
don't
that.
think that sounds right.
Look how much you're like Chris. I don't want to do the obstruction. Fucking embrace it. The second that you embrace it, the better off we are.
All right, fine. Let's get a fucking cow
Take
prod
your
in here.
balls out then. Take them out and leave them out.
Let me see.
Put them right here on the
I don't
table.
want to put my balls on the table. I was
There
ready for
he
the.
is.
I was ready for the prod. I was ready for
See
the cow
that?
prod.
That's the exact opposite of working with. You've got to embrace the obstruction. You fired Chris. Everybody.
Nice. Fuck me.
Ew.
Not like literally, like just the fact that I don't have a job and I'm gonna have child pornography up.
You know how much fucked up? Nobody said that. You made that
I
up.
assume you say you're
No, why would
things
you
to my
assume
computer.
that?
That's what you
Tell
said.
yourself that you are.
Oh my
You could have been a spy.
All he said was something on your computer.
Oh, that's where just my mind went to immediately. That's
Of course
all.
it did.
We didn't ask you to bring in your home computer. Hey, we got a break here, but let's set up what we're going to be doing next, Chris.
Next is going to be Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. That's featuring Colin Quinn, Dave Attell, Jim Gaffigan, Tom Papa, Lisa Lampanelli, Jim Norton, Nick DiPaolo, Robert Kelly, Rich Voss, Jim Florentine, Andy Kindler, Vinnie Brand, and Matt Ballick are the author of the upcoming Greg Giraldo book.
These are some of the most talented people of their generation, talking with such admiration about one of the people they thought was the most talented people. So this is, it's fascinating. It really is. And Chris did a load of the grunt work in this. This was his last project of his career, of his satellite radio career. I believe he'll have a career in podcasting and door-to-door aluminum siding sales. I believe that.
Looking forward to it.
So we'll be right back with that Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. This is Bennington.
You're listening to Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. Ron Bennington speaks with the friends and stand-ups who knew the beloved comedian.
Christians, they want you to go see movies like March of the Penguins. They say, well, the penguins are monogamous. Well, first of all, penguins are monogamous for 1 year, one mating season. Anybody could fuck the same person for 1 year. Especially if every person looked exactly like every other person.
For the next hour, the life of Greg Giraldo will be examined and discussed.
I was in a subway the other day. This guy screams across the tracks. He goes, "Yo, Monica! Yo, Monica! Yo, you got AIDS, yo!" And I thought, wow, that's how they tell you?
This is Greg Giraldo, A life in comedy.
This terrorism story's on the news. My son is watching it. And he's like, but Daddy, how come the bad men hate us so much? Isn't that heartbreaking, man? I almost started crying, Because he's 18. Now, what kind of moron am I raising?
And here's your host, Ron Bennington.
Hi, I am Ron Bennington, and this is Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. We're going to be talking to literally some of the funniest people on the planet about the life and times of Greg Giraldo. People like Colin Quinn, Dave Attell, Jim Gaffigan, Tom Papa, Lisa Lampanelli, Jim Norton, Nick DiPaolo, Robert Kelly, Vinnie Brand, Rich Voss, Jim Florentine, Andy Kindler, as well as Matt Balaker, an author of the upcoming book about Greg Giraldo. And this is just going to scratch the surface of the life of this brilliant comedian and very complicated guy. It's always interesting, I think, when you see somebody whose talent that you admire so much, and maybe the last guy in the room to get that is the person with that talent. But I can tell you this, just having these kind of people talking about him and the fact that there's a new biography that will be coming out on him will just help you know that even though he's been gone now for a while, his legacy and his life and hopefully his work catches on. So let this just scratch the surface. If you were a fan, remember to go back and check out his work. And if you're young and you weren't there for when Greg was doing his work, go back and take a look at it. Right off the bat, let's talk to Jim Gaffigan about his early career, and he and Greg kind of got started at the same time.
When you start stand-up comedy, you have your typical, awkward experience, but then you usually pair up with a like-minded person. And so you have this comedy buddy. And so my first comedy, or maybe not my first, but my initial comedy buddy was Greg Giraldo. We both started at the same time. I met him. We were both wearing suits. We were at this open mic called Cold Waters, which was Gladys Simon's. Before she had Gladys's at Hamburger Harry's, she had it at Cold Waters, and now she's at the comic strip. She's still going. And I met Greg Giraldo, and he was a lawyer, and I was an account guy in advertising. And back then there was, it was mostly people doing stand-up were mentally insane. And Greg kind of looked at each other like, well, you're not insane. And it had nothing to do with us being in suits. It just was. And I remember him doing material, and I was like, that's kind of funny. And he actually approached me, and he was like, hey, you're kind of funny. And so we ended up being, buddies, and I, knew him for, we both did Caroline's Comedy Hour with Bonnie McFarlane. That's where we met Bonnie. And we kind of struggled together because at that time, the last thing New York City needed were two more white guys. And even though Greg is Hispanic, but he's, he was just another guy, so we would go out to Long Island together, and we would go to Chuckles and occasionally Governor's, and Greg was the one who got me stage time because he was from Queens, and I look like John Tesh to them, so they would kind of talk to Greg, and Greg would kind of vouch for me. So but we were buddies, and the amazing thing of the story is that Greg was, I would be the drunk one. But like when we started, I remember Greg really wanted to be, like, Greg's comedy idol was Brian Regan, and my comedy idol was Dave Attell. And somewhere in between, we shifted. And I ended up more like Brian Regan. He ended up more like Dave Attell.
Damn, I love that story. That is just hilarious to me. that they switched spots somewhere early in their career. This is Jim Florentine talking about his early days with Greg Giraldo.
I started doing comedy probably 2 years before him. He's doing comedy like 4 months. He's emceeing and I'm featuring, and he's blowing me off the stage. That's how good he was at 4 months. Like, he was just such a great comic, always coming up with new material, good dude, and just, you know, I don't know. He had a sitcom, you know, he was only doing comedy like 2 years in a sitcom on ABC. It only lasted a year. I forget what it was called. I mean, he was in LA. I mean, his career was just right from the beginning. But then I guess later on, you know, with Comedy Central, he had like 6 or 7 different pilots, and for some reason, none of them ever got picked up. Like, he was always the next guy to just get to that next level. But as a comic, he was genius. He would kill every show. You know what I mean? And the roast he was amazing on. But for some reason, later on, the TV thing didn't work for him. I don't know. They were always trying different projects for him, and it just didn't click. He was Comedy Central's boy. He was with my manager, Rick Dorfman, at the time, too. So we were close, me, him, you know, and Rick, and then, you know, his management, and then Greg, obviously. But Greg opened a lot of doors for me because he was so popular. He was getting so much stuff that my manager was like, hey, I got this other guy, Jim Florentine. Why don't you take a look at him? Which is great. And they're like, okay, but we really want Greg. He's like, well, give Jim a little part. Sure. And no problem. I'm like, beautiful. He's opening doors for me.
One thing I love to hear about is comedians at the very early stages. And this is Tom Papa talking about that time in their careers.
On June 12th, 1993, I did my very first stand-up set. I drove my little car in from New Jersey, and if you had a couple friends that would pay to sit in the audience and drink, you could get on stage. I went to the New York Comedy Club, which was in a different location than it is now. It was on top of this, like, cowboy bar. And I walked in, and this guy, Gary, was on stage. There was no one in the audience. My friends went in, and there was, like, 3 people in the audience. And my friends went in. There was, like, now 7 people in the audience. And it looked kind of pathetic. And sitting there waiting to go on was Greg Giraldo, a young, very nervous, very sweaty Greg Giraldo, who'd been doing stand-up for only like 6 months. And I know that because I immediately started talking to him, and I was trying to be cool. I was like, this won't be bad. It won't be that scary. It'll be fine. And then I saw him, and he was like shaking like a leaf, and he was, you know, talking 100 miles an hour like Greg always did. And yeah, this is cool. It's good. You know, there's not much of an audience, but it's going to be good. And nice to meet you. Where are you from? And he went up and did his thing. It was hilarious. I went up and was like, okay, but we immediately became best of friends from that point on. And there was a period where I actually had some personal stuff going on and had to stop going to the open mics and stuff. And I would be in my day job in this little advertising agency, and Giraldo would call me every day. Dude, what are you doing? Where have you been? It's been 2 months. What are you doing? You gotta come do stand up. What are you gonna do? Advertising? What are you gonna do? Advertising your whole life? You can't do advertising. And he was kind of confirming his leap, which was leaving like this amazing law career that he could have had after coming out of Harvard Law. And he had just made the leap and wasn't doing it anymore. And he's like, well, if you stay and do advertising in this tiny crummy agency, then I definitely screwed up. He was the best.
Tom Papa talking about his early stand-up career and meeting Greg Giraldo very early on. I always get the biggest kick out of these kind of stories. Here's one of the funniest people on the planet, Nick DiPaolo.
Greg Giraldo, one of my favorite. What a shame. This is how I know how good a comic he is. He's been gone quite a few, almost 7 years now? Around that? But I still see his albums ahead of mine on iTunes all the time. I mean, he was that good. And first time I met him, I was at I think it was the first time I met him. Catch a Rising Star in Princeton, New Jersey. It's at the Hyatt Hotel. And I come off stage, and he's hitting on my date, who's now my wife. But it was so funny, and he was like blushing about it. He didn't know. I don't know if he didn't know or whatever. But I remember calling him on his. But I remember having to follow him, and he was young comic, And I'm like, Jesus, this kid's going to be a pain in the ass for the next couple nights because he was really funny and smart and just what you guys know him as. And it's such a shame, you know.
Nick DiPaolo talking about Greg Giraldo and meeting him very early on. And this is kind of a class of comedians that came in more or less around the same time. But here's a guy who was doing this probably 40 years before them, Rich Voss.
Years ago, before anybody knew anybody, I was working for Lauderdale, the comic strip, and he came in and did a guest spot. And that was before anybody had anything. I thought he was great. Not only was it smart, funny, and challenging. You know what I mean? It was smart, funny, and clever. He was a great comic. He was smart and funny. On roast, he was great. He was just great. That's why they put him first. He would open the show, and they know, to start off on those Comedy Central roasts, him going first, he would get the crowd, and the people would go, oh, this is going to be a good roast. So, you start, especially on a roast, you always start off with one of the strongest roasters you can. Like on a regular stand-up show, they put, on the road, they put the local host, whatever, the middle, and then the headliner. But in a roast, you got to have a headliner like that up front. I loved watching him do roasts. I loved it. I thought he was quick and clever, and that's what's great about a good roast is when you don't see the punchline coming and the cleverness of it, and he definitely had that down. It's sad that when you get guys like him, Patrice, Mike DiStefano, Mike D, all three of them would have exploded even to another level. All of them. Mike, but obviously Patrice, Giraldo, they all, it's like Hicks. When Hicks died, he was 33. He wasn't even coming into his own practically. At 33, Hedberg, all of them. Oh, I don't know. Only the good die young. I think I came up with that. I don't know if I've ever heard that, only the good die young, but I'm pretty sure I came up with that. Only the good die young. I'm gonna see if I could write something about that. Only the good die young. That's a good quote. Anyhow, that's all I got. I mean, he also could, give some of his tour dates or plug some of his CDs, but why would he do that on a Giraldo documentary? That would be, what is he, the president? Is he a narcissist? No, I'm not like that. I'm not going to say, go get Rich Voss 5 on iTunes or Still Empty Inside or 141 IQ, because why would I want to make this about me when it's about such a clever guy that probably would have loved my last CD? Well, we had that kind of, stuff in common, clever.
Rich Voss, sadly speaking from his heart and showing exactly who he is. It always is interesting in comedy because a lot of people, it's the only thing that they could have done, and they were either, school cut-ups or young truants. But Giraldo actually had this Ivy League background. He went to Columbia right after high school and then on to Harvard Law. So it's really unique and really strange that what he decided to do with those degrees is to do stand-up. And this is Jim Gaffigan talking about that.
He was so talented that I think this business is very confusing for, brilliant people like Greg, who is this, this amazing story of his parents were, immigrants, and his, he got a scholarship to go to a great school in high school in Manhattan, and then he, went to Columbia, and then he went to Harvard Law, and that the fact that the entertainment industry is not this meritocracy was kind of confusing for Greg, because you have to understand, stand-up comedy of all entertainment industries actually is a meritocracy. You're either good or you're not good. I mean, there's some kind of, smoke and mirrors, but you either can do the job or you can't. And so I think it was very frustrating for Greg to be this skilled, likable guy and, encounter frustration and disappointment when he had won at everything in his life. So, but it's really interesting to, obviously the ending was very tragic, and the Greg that, at the ending was the last version of Greg I'd ever imagined that I'd encounter, that from that first day of meeting him or from being his comedy buddy for so many years. I mean, I remember one time he came in from Queens to pick me up to go to Easter at his parents' house, and I was too hungover to go. So it was like, it doesn't, the ending doesn't match the story of how I knew Greg.
Jim Gaffigan talking about Greg Giraldo. And, we talked a little bit there about his background as far as being an Ivy Leaguer. But he was also, of course, very much a street guy. And at that time, the Comedy Cellar and the table in there was, you had to kind of defend yourself every night. And that's what Colin Quinn later put together as Tough Crowd. But this is Nick DiPaolo talking about some of those Comedy Cellar days.
I'd see him at the Comedy Cellar. He'd come in and he'd bounce in and he'd have his leather jacket on, and he'd make up some Italian word, he'd see me and he'd go, "Hey, guys, and would hug some made up bullshit Italian word that doesn't even exist, And then would sit down and talk politics, and he'd laugh at me and, DiPaolo, why do you hate women? And I go, what are you talking about? I go, you look at the look on your face. I never met anybody so miserable that, in their life. And, but Manny would come in, the late, great Manny Dwarman, who owned the Comedy Cellar, and he loved Giraldo, and would talk about what happened in the news that day.
I love that story, and I love the fact that Greg had ended up finding his tribe with those guys at the Comedy Cellar. Here's Nick talking more about those days.
Everybody could relate to him. So he was just hitting his stride too. He was just getting good. But one night, another Greg Giraldo, him and Patrice didn't exactly love each other. And I remember being at the Comedy Cellar one night, and they get into a shouting match. Giraldo's at one end of the restaurant. This is a full Olive Tree Cafe restaurant. Patrice is at the other end, and they start having words about something, like a blacks and Hispanics will do. Natural enemies, I was told by Colin. But I think Giraldo might have been a little drunk, and Patrice, they start yelling at each other. And I'm sitting there enjoying it, but there's people, picture this, the family's eating and shit. And Giraldo, oh, fuck you, Patrice, you fucking. And I had not seen that side of Giraldo before, But it was sad. So you'd see him on stage at the Cellar working out. Those Tough Crowd days, that was the heyday down at the Comedy Cellar. We'd all support each other. We're all doing new stuff and all cheering each other on and stuff. And I had heard about Greg's, drug use. Never really saw it until one night he came in and he was out of his mind. He was downstairs, right where people are funneling in to the Comedy Cellar, that little hallway, and he smashed his head against one of the pictures on the wall. And he's mumbling shit, and I helped him up, and we helped him upstairs, and I had always heard that he had a problem, and that's the only time I had witnessed it, and it was horrible. And I hear him now on the radio, and it just, and I've told this before because I've been interviewed about him many times, but I'll hear one of his bits and go, oh, I have a good tag for him or whatever. And you forget. Same with Patrice. I want to text him or whatever, and you just forget for a second.
Those guys were so absolutely hilarious and combustible. And the fact that Colin put that show together with all of them, which was just moving them out of the cellar and the table and on to Comedy Central. Go back and look at some of the material. Don't make me tell you how to use Google or YouTube. Your kids, you know what to do. But the material lives on, and also there's going to be an upcoming book that will delve into this way deeper. But we wanted to just give you a taste. And this is Robert Kelly, the very, very funny Robert Kelly, talking about those times when the Comedy Cellar crew moved over into Tough Crowd?
Me, Greg, Norton, and Patrice. We were at the table when Patrice got kicked out of the show. I remember it was me, Greg, and we're all Greg was talking to Manny and Norton. They were having a conversation, and then Patrice had said something to Manny, and he fucking sort of really disrespectful, and then Manny was fucking flipped out. I remember Greg was sticking up for Patrice, and Manny started snapping on Greg a little bit, and then Norton was sticking up for Patrice, and Norton wound up leaving. He kicked himself out. It was a fucking crazy night. But of course, a couple of days later, we're all back at the table laughing about it. Yeah, Greg was there every night, man. Yeah, he was one of the regulars on Tough Crowd, and then he got his own show after that. I mean, Comedy Central fucking, he would always murder, man. He would, you always think that I would do Tough Crowd once in a while. No, I wasn't a regular, but, Colin was real nice to me. But, you think he wrote all this stuff, and then you do your thing at the end, and then you hear Geraldo's, and it was like a hot 5 minutes that he would write every time he was on there. He was just one of the best on the show.
I had the chance to sit down and talk to Colin Quinn, not just about Greg, but also that entire Tough Crowd crew, which to this day, I'm surprised they got this show on TV. And this would make a great documentary and probably even a fantastic movie if the right person could write it and direct it. But this is the great Colin Quinn talking about those days.
That's great. It's great. Actually, a guy's writing a book about him. I'm reading it right now, and I'm supposed to do the forward, which means I was supposed to do the forward like a month and a half ago. I got busy. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, Greg was the guy. Greg was sort of like the nicest hybrid of what Tough Crowd was. You know what I mean? In the ideal sense, in that he was so funny, but he was informed, but he tried to see, like, he was kind of like, he could go either way. Like, you couldn't tell what his political leaning was, because he would just go back and forth all the time, like a normal human being would, if our society was not just this, back in red and blue Republican. He was kind of like, he'd go in and out each day,
But he was educated, but also a street guy. Right?
Yeah, so he grew up poor in Queens. I think his father's he was a Colombian immigrant. I think he was like a busboy or something. He worked in a restaurant. And then Greg was like he got into Regis High School, which is this elite Catholic high school in New York that, you have to get these great grades. It's like the Harvard of Catholic schools. And then he got into Columbia. I mean, he got into Harvard itself, and then Columbia Law School. So he was like a brilliant guy, yeah.
And what was it that he fulfilled for you on that show? What did he bring that you didn't have without him?
He brought like that the fact that he was always prepared. You know what I mean? He actually had the big famous fight with Dennis Leary because Dennis Leary was accusing him of being prepared. But that was Greg. He went to, you don't go to Regis, Harvard, and Columbia by going, I'll wing it when I get in the test today, And he always brought the middle. I don't want to say the middle ground because it sounds like it's not funny, the middle. But he would be ironically, kind of cynically, attacking both sides and whatever he said. So he'd be saying something, he'd be mocking what he was talking about, but then it would be an almost sarcastic undertones. He was making fun of everything,
That piece with him and Leary was so funny to me because you saw how quickly it went from being a comedy show to two guys on the corner.
Yes.
Like it literally came close to being physical.
Yeah, no, it looked like a fight. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, because, and Leary takes a lot of grief for that one. And I'm not denying the grief he takes. I'm just saying that the one thing that nobody realizes is that we were reshooting. It even says in the shoot, glad we reshot this. And afterwards I go, I'll cut that if you want. He goes, no, leave it. It's good TV. Yeah. So at least Leary left it up.
And it was good TV. And Leary was I think that people would side with Greg because he was the underdog.
That's
but
right.
They were both like, a dog looking in the mirror. I mean, you could see that those guys are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, exactly. They were both fuming mad. And I think it was that Dennis, I don't think Dennis understood what Greg, like I said, Greg was being sarcastic. And Dennis didn't realize so whatever he said about North Korea, I forget what the line was. And then Leary's like, oh yeah, right. And then Greg's like, yeah, you didn't get it. I was being sorry. And then it was just ugly.
Yeah. And he had stepped on him, you know what I mean? Like, Jordan was going somebody steps on him. And that was the whole thing. But that Tough Crowd had that all the time, right? I mean, that was always on the outline that this thing could become less than fun.
Sure. I mean, a lot of times it was ugly, you know?
Yeah.
But that was the whole point. I was trying to make it like, oh, everybody likes real. Like, I wanted to keep it authentic, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I was trying not to make it so that, like, people would try to write jokes, but only, like, they get the topics like an hour early. So a lot of it was improv, and I wanted it to be, like, authentic. So it's not always laughs, or it's not always going to be laughs. Sometimes it got serious, you know? I was trying to make it, like, moment in the moment.
Colin Quinn talking about Tough Crowd and, of course, Greg Giraldo's role in that. And I always love the fact that Greg just seemed to be just consuming this information every day and then filtering it out, either through comedy or sometimes just his own point of view. There's a book on Greg Giraldo's life that's being written right now, and this is the author, Matt Balaker, talking about Greg on Tough Crowd.
He had a likability where he could insult someone and just sort of smile about it, and you wouldn't think it was too personal. And I think because of that, you know, he was on probably, I think, more than any other panelist. And the network apparently wanted him on more, but you know, there's still the dynamic of you can't have him on every episode, and there are other comedians to have in there. But I think his insights, I mean, after a post, you know, 2001 9/11. Added an intelligence that, I mean, there are plenty of other smart comedians. I think Nick DiPaolo is really brilliant, Jim Norton, Colin Quinn. I mean, I think all the regulars were very heady, but he kind of took it to a level that I think people across the country maybe didn't see initially, you know, who weren't there in their ground zero. And then kind of gave Tough Crowd, which kind of had a little bit of a blue collar edge to it, almost a Daily Show feel, because he brought his, you know, Ivy League pedigree without losing his brashness.
This is Jim Norton talking about Tough Crowd.
Doing Tough Crowd with him. Here's the problem with doing Tough Crowd with him. We spent so much time together. You know, you kind of felt bad about your own writing because Giraldo was always prepared. You know, Dennis Leary gave him shit for that and, you know, and fucking learned to rue the day he did. But Giraldo was a really prepared, funny dude. Like, he cared about being funny. He cared about being original and about being topical. I remember seeing him at the Comedy Cellar one night, and he was walking off stage, and I was waiting to go on. And he goes, man, I don't fucking write enough. I don't do new material. He was complimenting me on something. He's like, you always do new stuff. I'm not doing. And it's like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, you're always doing new shit, but he didn't see. It's weird you don't see yourself like other people see you. Greg didn't understand how much new shit he was doing and how respected he was, I think, by the other comedians.
It's truly a crazy and interesting and fun show, Tough Crowd. Go back. There's a lot of the stuff on YouTube, but still pretty mind-blowing today that these guys were able to get together and talk about the news that way. And it infuriated a lot of people because you know how we are. We'd like just to know one side or the other, and whoever disagrees with us is a terrible person. But there was really funny stuff on there. And every once in a while, somebody would say something that might change your mind. This is Nick DiPaolo talking about working with Greg on Tough Crowd.
I thought Giraldo gave what I do for a living credibility. When a guy is a Harvard lawyer and he quits to be a stand-up comic, it just gives us some credibility. It's not all dummies doing this, not all pot smoking, fucking lazy. 98% of us. But he always brought sanity to the table. He always saw both sides like a true liberal would, you know. Just very smart. And then Tough Crowd. I remember him coming into the green room one day, and I got my notebook. I'm jotting something down about 10 minutes before showtime. And he goes, DiPaolo, so fucking competitive. And I go, well, I don't know. I said I didn't do this shit last night. We got the topic or whatever. So I'd say about 5 minutes later, I'm going down the stairs, getting ready to go to the studio. Who's under the staircase jotting his shit down? Mr. Harvard himself. Yeah, so competitive. But he was just funny in again, Harvard, smart enough to go to Harvard, one of the best high schools in New York. Just a brilliant guy. but he could be that every guy too. You know,
that's Nick DiPaolo talking about Greg Giraldo and the fact that he loved that they had a guy in their midst that was an Ivy League guy. This is Nick talking more about Tough Crowd.
His shit was so goddamn funny, and like I said, I don't even think we saw the best of him. You know, but yeah, sorely missed. And like I said, everybody liked him. People weren't kind of a highbrow, but he was that. But he could do that every guy stuff too. That's why he's such a good fit on Tough Crowd. Of course, his showdown with Dennis Leary, which everybody talks about, which was just, you know, I love both those guys. I'm from Boston. I like Leary a lot, and so I was just sitting there going, "Oh Jesus," and that's all. And you know, that's all everybody talks about. And then Geraldo Rivera had me on a couple of years ago. He had a show on Sunday nights to interview me about Greg, and Geraldo Rivera literally thought that Greg took his name, Geraldo. Greg Giraldo, as her, he thought that was. I go, no, that's his real. Do you believe it? So, and he goes, yeah, but he died in a hotel, you know, and I couldn't think of what to say. I go, yeah, that was sad, but you know what I should have said was, yeah, that's where comedians and musicians die a lot of times, you know. But he brought out he introduced him as a. When we were talking about that segment on Geraldo, he called him he said, Greg Giraldo, an insult comic. And I go, don't say that. That doesn't do, I hate that term for anybody. I don't know where that came from. Rickles might be the only one it fits. But it started with the roast. She started to hear that insult comic. And that does not define Giraldo by any means. That's not what he was at all. He was really good at the roast. And it's funny, us guys that did those roasts got labeled as like insult comic, which really, and I remember pointing that out to Geraldo Rivera going, he wasn't that doesn't do him justice, that label. So, but yeah, great guy and a great comic. And what can you say?
I love Nick talking about the fact that you can get branded so quickly. People want to put you into a box, but going back over Greg Giraldo's work, and there's plenty of it out there for you to check out and keep alive. But there doesn't seem to be any one center. He did so many things. And some of that, I think, even frustrated him. But he made a lot of this stuff look easy. And again, I want to point this out. The funniest people that you can imagine are sitting around today talking about him with great admiration. And this is one of the best of all time, David Tell.
Well, I knew Greg for years, like coming up through the New York comedy scene, but we worked together many times, but I guess we did do a special together. It was Greg, myself, Dane Cook, and Sean Rouse, and I hosted it. And when Greg went on for his, part of the special, there was this fire alarm that went off, and he rolled with it. He just totally made it part of his act, and it was great because, that's what you're supposed to do. And it already was kind of a rough show to begin with, so it really fit in, if you ask me. And that's what I loved about Greg, because he was, good at everything. He was good at both topical stuff, working the crowd, super smart, balls of steel, and that was really what separated him from a lot of other comics. He really never pulled any punches, and he never took the easy road either, whether it was in, life or on stage. So, I guess at the end we all pay for it. But he was and is probably one of the templates of like what you should be as a comic. Greg had some of the best topical stuff out there. I mean, like he just could run the gambit. He had like great topical stuff, and he had like some super awesome just sex stuff, like he really knew how to do it. And I guess the Civil War documentary had come out, by Ken Burns, and it was all about those letters, and everybody did their parody on it. So he did his thing about like the letters that are being sent now, because no one knows how to write anymore, and no one really is poetic, like these beautiful letters from the past. Now it's like, don't fuck anybody while I'm here in the desert, instead of desert. Like, I always love that line. It really always makes me laugh. But I'll say one thing, like, I was on Tough Crowd once or twice. Greg was a regular, and in order to be a regular there, you really had to hold your own. And, like, Greg and Patrice, who are both, you know, no longer with us, they were definitely the ones that, like, when you saw both of them on there, you knew that was a great episode.
Dave Attell talking about Greg Giraldo. And I'll go back to say it's tough to find the center of Greg's creativity, because some of these things that he's most known for, that he did so well, he personally didn't feel like it reflected upon his act or his work, but he was just great at them. This is Jim Norton talking about his skills.
He was a great comedian. I mean, and on those roasts, I mean, he literally set the bar for those roasts, because he was a fucking machine and he was vicious. Like, he came out and really just knocked people's teeth out right up front and let people know this is what this roast is going to be. So I miss him a lot. You know, and then right after him was Patrice a year later. It's like, I can't believe it. You know, we talk about tough crowd reunions. You can't do a tough crowd reunion without Patrice and Greg. Maybe without Greg, maybe without Patrice, but not without both of them. There was just too much of those guys in that show. Too much of their heart and souls were they were part of the fabric of that show. Colin was, of course, the host, and I was a big part of it, and so was Nick and Keith. But you cannot do it without both of those guys. It just wouldn't feel right. It'd be too big of a gap. So yeah, he's missed, man.
Jim Norton talking about Greg Giraldo and his skills. You know, if you go back to those roasts, I think the three people that really exploded off of it was Jeff Ross, Lisa Lampanelli, and Greg. And when you went to see Jeff Ross or Lisa Lampanelli, you kind of got the people from those roasts. If you were a fan of the roast, you went out and saw their show, you kind of got more of them. But if you were a fan of Greg on the roast and went to see his show, you didn't exactly get that guy from the roast. You got Greg Giraldo in his stand-up mode. And again, one of those complicated things about him and his creativity. This is Lisa Lampanelli talking about Greg Giraldo.
He never was particularly nice to me, so I never really talked to him much. He was a real dented can. We're all dented cans, you know, but unfortunately he had, you know, turned it on himself. And a lot of those guys didn't give me any time of day. You know, and Jeff Ross has always been super nice to me. That's like the exception. But like all those guys on those roasts, they're consumed with themselves. I get it. Me too. But most male comics haven't been particularly nice. Norton's an exception. He was always nice, but he was so friggin' horny and weird that I was like, oh my God, I'm scared of him. Like, I didn't think he'd ever try to rape me or anything, because I wasn't rapeable at that time. But I mean, thought he was too weird. But yeah, a lot of those guys weren't really nice. And I think it was, now that I realize, it wasn't me, it was them. They had their internal demons. Of course, Greg Giraldo is going to be nice to a big, open-hearted, mushy-hearted, white, fat bitch. You know what I mean? Like, why should you be? Like, I'm not open to you, you're not going to be open to me. So I now try to be more open to attract the type of person who would be sort of, wouldn't have been open to me in the past.
And this is Robert Kelly talking about Greg.
I appreciated Greg, you know, a lot. Just before he died, I started listening to his comedy, and I was like, holy shit. Like, he did a lot of the work. He's one of those guys who was kind of really funny, but he did all the work too. So I remember being on a Tough Crowd with him, and he'd have all these notes, and Patrice would make fun of him. Fucking notes, just be funny. But you know, he wrote funny shit, and he performed it. He was one of the best at it. And, you know, it's kind of, it sucks because it was weird because we were kind of becoming friends, and he was trying to get sober, and, you know, I've been sober, and I kind of reached out, like, if you ever need me, and, you know, and he didn't reach out, but he was, you know, also like, yeah, that's cool, man, thanks. Hey, what's up? And, you know, it's funny. Patrice's girlfriend just walked by. Patrice's wife just walked by me today. That was fucking weird. Yeah, I mean, but I only have 2 CDs on my phone. The only comedy CDs I have is Patrice O'Neal's and Greg Giraldo's. So every once in a while, in my car, the only 2 comics that come up is Patrice or Greg, and not because they're both passed. You know, I actually had Greg's on before that. So, his bit about the fat kid with wheels on his sneakers is just how fucking he could take something and just rip it apart and then just rant about it. And it was just so on the money, so hilarious. It's just amazing. One of the funniest guys ever, and it's sad that I didn't get to appreciate him more when we were hanging out at the table.
Again, it's about the comedy. This is Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy, and if you get the opportunity, make the opportunity to go back and check out his work, because if this show is about anything, it's about keeping some of this work alive. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. This is Robert Kelly talking more about Giraldo's material.
His material is just, man, I mean, you can't, it was, the reason I like it, if you listen to it, when a comic invents their own style, it's kind of, a little bit of that, a little bit of this is when they really come into their own. And he had that, his bits were very topical. He could be topical. He could be personal, and he would put it into these rants and just go on, and it just never stopped. It was like I loved him because he stepped on the gas and he didn't let up until he said goodnight. There was jokes per minute and just crushing the whole time he was up there. Really aggressive, ranty, topical, political, personal shit. Just kind of all of it, which is great. I mean, just one of the best. And I mean, he's a fucking lawyer. You didn't even need to do this shit. He had a law degree. He was a highly intelligent guy, but he was also cool as shit. He wore a leather fucking wristband, tattoos, and just a cool dude.
This is the incredibly funny Andy Kindler, who he and Greg, and this is one of those odd things in life, they ended up as judges on Last Comic Standing, which I thought was a very funny and bizarre place to see them both in. But this is Andy, who, many comedians admire and have nothing but respect for, talking about Greg and his material.
He was always hilarious, but he went through such a change where his act became so much more real and so much more showing all the different levels to himself that, not every comic is able to do that. There are a lot of comics, I'm sure, who were talented, who never continued because whatever, they got disgusted or whatever, they were frustrated. But he went through such a change as a comic, and it's really cool when you can see that in somebody. I've seen that in a lot of comics, because I'm old now. But I see comics, who started out, and I've seen a couple comics. I thought, I don't see how they're ever going to be funny, and they became funny. And so it's like he was, in that sense, like a true comedian. And I always just felt like he could have been a lawyer, he could have been all these things, but he absolutely became a comic. That's pretty brave. I say I could be a lawyer, but I don't think I could be. It's like there really is a risk involved when you could make astronomical sums of money, or do what you love. And so I just thought it was very brave and also very sweet. And I loved hanging around with him. He's one of those people, like, you really wanted to hang around with him more. You just wanted to be with him. I think he's a true comedian. I mean, it's just like, either you're meant to, I hate to make it like you're meant to do it or you're not meant to do it. Mostly the goal of a comedian is to take what you had off stage before you even were a comic and then go on stage and become the on-stage version of that. And so I think the great comics in general all go through, all comics. I look at my early stuff, thank God there weren't a lot of cameras then. Because it was kind of probably pretty awful. And so, and of course, then you have someone like Chappelle who was like brilliant kind of from the beginning. But I think that because Greg was, and this is what I mean by like so highly intelligent in the sense that he was a sensitive person who was feeling things and extremely bright and insightful about it. So like we would talk, he would talk to me about the program or whatever. He would talk to me, and we had never spent that much time together. But he would talk to me, and you'd see, oh my God, he has got almost like an encyclopedic mind, and he's got a lot of things that he's thinking about. So I think that he probably was too young when he first got his first break, because you're always too young, and so. And he decided he just couldn't have been comfortable not developing everything that a great comic is meant to develop. And so that's why I think it was. I also think he came up during a time period which I wasn't around much for, but there was kind of that crossover between the alternative movement in L.A. and New York and the stuff that Attell was doing and Giraldo were doing. They were like, I'm from New York, but I started comedy in L.A., and I never related to the stereotypical tough guy New York thing. But the way Giraldo approached it, he was more like I'd say like a guy's guy than me, and more obviously he's been in fights, so he's a tougher guy than me. But he had such a depth. And that was going around, I think that was around the same time the alternative movement was happening. So I think it was a good time period in comedy for him to be able to develop. And then himself. And then, of course, there is nothing funnier than his lines on the roast might be the funniest jokes of all time. Just like pound for pound, word for word, attack, that crisp attack, the pain of the joke. It's almost like people go, oh, I knew him from the roast. Well, the reason why was like he was like the essence of what a roasting thing would be. Like he knows the person he's roasting, or he has something important to say beyond the slam.
Andy Kindler talking about Greg Giraldo. And once again, here's Tom Papa.
One time, like towards the end, he got really into boating. He loved boating. And it was such a hopeful thing because he was always so super intelligent and super fraught with anxiety. And, that's where all the self-medicating, I think, came from. He was just one of those guys whose brains never really turned off. And, but he was just, filled with love for his family, and he just loved life, and he got into boating. And it was like this real bright spot because he loved it. He would go out and stuff, and then he got his own boat they could take the kids out on and go out into the ocean. And it's such a funny thing whenever you have a comedian, especially like a real New York comedian, like a Giraldo, who you normally just see in mostly black, late at night, in a club or at a bar, to see him out on the sea in the sunshine is always kind of jarring. But he took me out in it, and we went to Brooklyn to get on the boat, and then we went out, and he was so filled with life. He was so happy, and he was so grateful that comedy had brought us to this point. Like, we were successful, and we're now like on a boat that he bought, and we're going around Manhattan, and we're just so excited and so like kid-like, and it seemed like everything was going to be okay. And we thought, and we had this thing like, could we just go around Manhattan? Like, could we just? I mean, it's an island, right? It's technically an island, and we had no boating, like, know-how or anything. We just like, yeah, we go up the East River. We're like dodging like other boats and big planks, and we got to the very top, the tip of northern Manhattan, and we're like, okay, this is where I guess we would go around. And there was like this tiny little door, and like a little like like a toll bridge kind of thing, and a little hut connected to it, and we just pulled up and it's closed. And we're like, oh, I guess we can't go all the way around New York. Oh, well, we learned it. And then ding, ding, ding. All of a sudden, this little man in the thing opened up the gate, and we're like, he's letting us through. He's going to let us through. Full speed ahead, Greg. He hit it. We were so happy that we had done a full circle. We were actually able to do it. It was just so amazing. And I just always remember that whenever I think of Greg, whenever I come back here and running around New York, especially in the summer and stuff, just thinking of me and Greg doing around like two comedians a comedian shouldn't be on a boat, a comedian shouldn't be in water. But for that little brief moment there, we were just really, really enjoying life. Yeah, I miss him.
Tom Papa talking about a boat trip with Greg Giraldo. And I have no idea how a guy from Jersey and a guy from Queens have never heard of the Harlem River before. But, comedians. There's going to be a book out on Greg's life. And part of why we wanted to do this was just scratch the surface a little bit to let you hear so many of these great comedians and the way they felt about Greg Giraldo, not just as a person, and in some cases even in spite of as a person, but as an artist. And he was that. This is Matt Balaker, one of the authors of the new biography, talking about Greg Giraldo.
There's lots of things that surprised me. One, he played soccer at Columbia. I didn't know that. And the fact that he actually, while he was working as an attorney at Skadden Arps, before he kind of delved into stand-up comedy, he would periodically leave and play guitar. Like do open mic gigs at coffee shops or bars or wherever. In the Queens and Manhattan area. I didn't know that. And kind of his interest in music was something that I had some idea, but I think he was a classical guitar player. And then I think more kind of philosophically or psychologically, he almost had like some call it like an imposter syndrome, where he never, in many aspects, just didn't think he was that good or kind of felt like inadequate, even when he was at Harvard Law. And like, to me, that seems crazy, because someone that smart, you're like, how could you ever feel inadequate? But, I think it goes to show you never know what's going on in someone's head. And, he was considered by so many like as this iconic comedian and as certainly a comics comic. To not feel like you were adequate seems completely ridiculous. But, that definitely surprised me.
Matt Balaker talking about Greg Giraldo. And I think sometimes for brilliant people, it's very difficult in their work when they know it could have been even better. We might think it's great, but they had something in their mind that they were trying to get to and couldn't quite do it. And I think that is endlessly frustrating for the brilliant ones. And obviously, Greg had a lot of personal problems, but it wasn't like he wasn't aware of them. Just because you know the battle that you're in doesn't mean that you're going to do that safe thing all the time. This is Andy Kindler talking about the fact that Greg was very self-reflective.
I'd known him for a long time, but we never were in the same scene together, kind of. So this was, it was pretty intense, and I got to spend so much time with him, at that point in his life. I had no idea what was going to happen, but I got I felt very close to him very fast. He first of all was so, I just can't get over how smart he was. And I mean it like in a way of being interesting too. He just was really, really, his mind work was really, really great. And, so it was so intense. It was so quick and it was so intense. And I didn't, he was just so funny. But also, because he was in the program and he was talking about the program, and he was thinking about himself a lot. He was going through things like, you could tell he was, but obviously it's so weird when what happened to him, because then it affected me in such a weird way. I mean, it sounds like self-absorbed, but I didn't know him that well before then. But I'd always been someone who I admired, and then, like I was just watching some of his the midlife, what is it called, Midlife Vices, and just, I put it on. I haven't actually been able to watch anything since he passed away. I haven't been able to watch anything. I just and it's like I just realized I have not watched him since he died, and then I looked at it and it's like, he just was back in, just back in the flesh.
This is Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy, and Andy Kindler talking about some of the struggles that Greg dealt with.
I didn't know the degree to which he had struggled with things, but like he would tell me about how in I think it's AA where he said, you want to have restraint of pen or something, restraint of pen. It's like this is like years before I went into different Twitter obsessive compulsive holes, where it's like, he could see how he was very astute about what he was going through and about the struggles of trying to be sober and all this kind of stuff. But he also had an amazingly great sense of humor about it at the same time. So it was just, it's just something in me feels like, he was so self-aware and so present and so funny. You just can't reconcile the fact that he's gone, kind of. It's like, I guess you just always have to remember that things like that happen, and the way I saw him was the way he was. He really was funny all the time, sarcastic all the time, and definitely thought about things. I think before that, I knew he was smart and everything, but you don't know somebody till you spend time with them, and I could just tell that he got the concepts of why he was trying to be sober, and he got the concepts of what was happening in his life. And like during the last comic standing, there was this one comic who did a set. I don't even remember the details about it, but the guy kind of did a set. Then he said, "Well, this isn't even the set I was going to do. I don't even know why I'm here." And then Greg got really mad about it and basically was telling the guy, "Look, I've suffered in my life too. I've had, I've OD'd," and he was started to tick off a list of things, and so he was just angry because he felt like the guy was using his real problems as kind of a examining tool for the audition, and so like that was an example where I saw him get really upset, and then he wasn't upset in the next second, but I could tell that there was a lot going on there, and you don't necessarily. He's so calm and so, in a way, collected. You don't see all the things that are going on. So it was just amazing. Obviously, in retrospect, since he passed away, it was really, really intense to think about it. I mean, I was at the Stress Factory like 2 weeks before he was. We were like going around the country on the base. I was getting a little bit more money at that time. I can show you the checks if you don't believe me. But we were from Last Comic Standing exposure, and so he kept leaving me notes and things like that. So it's just the whole thing became so weird to me and affected me. It just affected me deeply.
This is Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. Greg had done an interview with Psychology Today, and it is such a tough read. When you get in talking about success and this drive to perfection, if you look at Greg's life by most people's standards, TV and the stage and the admiration of his peers, it certainly appears to be a successful life. But when there's something going on inside, when you're struggling to find something else, it's much more complicated. And reading this, it was a really, really tough read. But I saw a lot of myself in this article in ways that I'm not able to talk about. And of course, friends of mine as well. So you saw Greg on this struggle, and he certainly knew right from wrong and good from bad, but it doesn't mean that you could get to all those places at that time. And this is Jim Norton talking a little bit about Greg's place in the business.
I remember when he died. Of course you do. I was in Florida. I was doing a gig A place called Captain Brian's or something like that. It's a gig I did not enjoy in Florida. You know, you were there on a stage, and there's all these weird, like, fucking buoys behind you and seafarer shit. It was an awful gig. But I got a call, and it was Vinnie Brand's daughter from the Stress Factory, and she was crying. And she goes, are you available tonight? It was a Saturday. And I'm like, well, no, I'm in Florida. She goes, because we need someone to come in and cover. Greg's in the hospital. Can you come in and do the show? She asked me to come in and do the late show. I think it might have been the early show. I don't remember. And no, it was the early show. And I said, I can't. I'm in Florida. And, that was when he had overdosed and gotten taken to Robert Wood Johnson. And it's sad, but it wasn't surprising. You know, when you know a guy is doing drugs and you know a guy can't put sobriety, it was like Mitch Hedberg, you know, it's always a devastating thing and it makes you angry. Like, God damn it, dude. What the fuck, Greg? He was so good. And Geraldo also, I'm sorry I'm all over the place too, but Geraldo also had this way, like he made you hate the business in a way too, because he was so good and they could never find anything for him. Patrice too. There was never a place for these guys. Like Greg Giraldo got a lot of pilots and he did a lot of pilots, but none ever really took off. And it was like, God, how do you not find a place for that funny motherfucker, that prolific funny or the Patrice? You know, I mean, the web junk thing kind of became Tosh.0 eventually. But how do you not find a place for these guys that is like, how are they not iconic? They didn't die that young. I mean, Greg, I think, was in his 40s and Patrice was 41. I mean, they weren't 28 when they died. They weren't 25. So the fact that they couldn't find a place for it, you know, in the business, when we all look at ourselves like, hey, how come I'm not further along? Well, look at these guys. They were both brilliant comedically, and they didn't find what they were supposed to be doing.
Jim Norton talking about Greg Giraldo. This is Vinnie Brand, a comedian and owner of the Stress Factory, who was with Greg the night that he passed away. And amazingly, many people think it may have been the funniest show that he had ever done. Vinnie Brand.
Geraldo was there a lot, and
Yeah.
Geraldo was on early, meaning, you know, we were headlining Greg very early on. And that's a story that, you know, I mean, that guy had just really gotten to the point where he would break and had broken, you know, large. And it's not, I don't like to talk much about Geraldo because when that happened and how it happened was just such a tragic thing. And that last show he did was probably the best stand-up show. I mean, just an amazing show. And I walked him down to the hotel at 5:30 in the morning, and he was, a little bit out of it. And he said, "Did you record that show?" And I said, "No, I didn't record it. We only record if a comic asks." And he goes, "Man," "I think that's the best show I've ever had." And that was the last show he ever had. And the next day was really hard. We were in the green room waiting for him to come in. They called us and said, "Listen, you got to come down the Hyatt." And he never, it was already done. He passed away the following Thursday, but the damage had been done. And we had exchanged text messages that morning at about 10:30 because I got up early. I get up early no matter what time I go to bed. And he was doing a recovery show that day in the city. And I texted him and said, "Hey, I want to make sure you're okay and up and moving." And he said, "Yeah, I canceled the show." He goes, "The irony of doing that show would be too much." And that was the last time I really talked to him. But great guy. Good, brilliantly funny.
Vinnie Brand talking about the last show of Greg Giraldo. I want to point out to people, particularly young people, that the way Greg went out was the least interesting thing about his life. It's one of the more ordinary aspects of his life. And I know from when I was young, I would read bios about, Jim Morrison or Janis Joplin or Lenny Bruce and kind of obsess on that lifestyle. But it is common. It's very, very common. And this was not a common man. Greg Giraldo was a brilliant comedian. And the way he went out there, I don't know. I just saw the stats the other day. There's like 185 people a day that overdose and die in this country every single day. They said you could fill Yankee Stadium at the end of the year with the amount of people who OD. It's something that happens. The interesting thing to me about Greg Giraldo is his art, and I hope that you go out and check it out. And like I said, it's on YouTube. It's places that you can go and pick it up. And there's going to be a new biography on his life and times. And I'm going to let the author of that biography have the last word.
He deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of stand-up comedy. And you know, if you want to broaden comedy to sketch and film, maybe not. But when, you know, given the last 35 years, maybe 40 years, you know, kind of post Lenny Bruce. I mean, there's George Carlin, Joan Rivers. I mean, he's right up there. And I say that for a couple of reasons, but most importantly is he was topical and he would talk about like current events. But you know, now it's after, you know, more than 7 years after his death, and his topical material is evergreen. I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff now about North Korea, it seems just as relevant as it did 10 years ago. I mean, he had bits from the early 2000s that still hold up well, and it wasn't just like "take my wife, please." It was current events driven material, and that's just beyond impressive to me. And I think he should be known as someone who made it, because, you know, in the roast he was kind of lampooned as someone who kills pilots, but there was a reason he had so many pilots, because he was so damn good, and people would give him opportunities. So yeah, I mean, he could have been more, but I mean, he's right up there with you know, Chris Rock, Louis C.K., you know, say Joan Rivers. I'm a big fan of her. I think, you know, if I don't like lists, but if you're forced to make one, you know, he's got to be the greatest, you know, top 5 in the last, you know, 35 years. And by greatest, I mean, he could take a room, and you've probably seen this, of people who might not have even been there to see him. They weren't necessarily Greg Giraldo fans going in, and entertain them and make them laugh and make them think and just have a hell of a good time. And I think he could do that better than pretty much anyone I've seen.
This has been Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy. I want to thank a lot of the comedians. Well, I want to thank all the comedians that were part of this show, and to also point out one more time that a great deal of these guys are in recovery themselves, including the host of this show. So any of us could have had a last show anywhere and died in some hotel room. Again, that's not the most interesting thing about Greg. Go out, search out his work. Certainly, we're all looking forward to the new biography. But let me thank Colin Quinn, David Tell, Jim Gaffigan, Tom Papa, Lisa Lampanelli, Jim Norton, Nick DiPaolo, Robert Kelly, Rich Voss, Jim Florentine, Vinnie Brand, Andy Kindler, and Matt Balaker, the author of the upcoming book about Greg Giraldo. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you go and search out his work. And this has been Greg Giraldo, A Life in Comedy.